fighting is far from over.
Not for this exercise.
Welcome to Back of the Rack, a gaming videocast about games long neglected and not respected, games that everyone's heard of or hated, or no one's heard of and loved. We play the games in between the essentials and the unwanted, but mostly, we play what we want on this podcast. Join our Discord where you can talk with us and others about Back of the Rack games, and make sure to like and comment on our videos and leave good reviews on the podcast feeds. Your feedback and engagement is the fuel that keeps us going. We hope everyone watching and listening is doing great, and we thank you for joining us today on another episode. Starting off, we will introduce this month's game with a scripted segment giving you all the details, and then we will go into our unscripted thoughts about the game shortly afterwards. I'm Sondi, and with me always is Bendezzer, so without further ado, enjoy.
Long ago in the year 2000, while finishing work on Devil May Cry 2, Hideaki Itsuno conceptualized an action RPG inspired by both Western and Japanese role-playing games. Internally named Bulletin Board System RPG, or BBS for short, Itsuno thought of a role-playing games where players could create and rent out pawns to other players to help them in their own parallel journeys. Itsuno realized that technology was still limited at the turn of the millennia, leading him to scrapping the idea. However, years later, in 2008, Capcom executives gathered their top talent, requesting a new IP that would sell millions of copies, not unlike many of Capcom's legendary franchises. Itsuno brought up his scrapped idea, but now as an open-world action RPG that would use the new networking capabilities of the PS3 and Xbox 360 to make the pawn system a reality. The game was ambitious in its infancy, with an open world almost twice the size of the final map, and an endless dungeon that was shared across players. This would culminate in players working together to reach the top and fight the moon itself. The execs at Capcom were elated by the idea and greenlit the project. Joining Itsuno on development was Hiroyuki Kobayashi of Resident Evil fame, and Makoto Ikehara, who had worked in design and writing for multiple Capcom IP, including Breath of Fire and Mega Man. With their powers combined, Dragon's Dogma was born. Though the title had ambitions, most of the more grandeur ideas were scrapped to make the already confusing premise more commercial.
Bound to the dragon.
In Dragon's Dogma, you play as a humble villager whose village is attacked by a mythical dragon. In the midst of the chaos, you take up arms against the insurmountable foe, but your attacks are futile. Impressed with your valor and will to fight, the dragon consumes your heart. Yet somehow, you still live. You awaken and are dubbed the Arisen, with the ability to control pawns. These beings look identical to humans and come from other dimensions. They also lack the fire that drives humanity but are loyal to the Arisen. Pawns are created and nurtured by other players. They can help you by guiding you to hidden treasure or revealing tactics to defeating enemies. You can rate and gift enemies to pawns to indirectly help other players in their own playthroughs. With a main pawn by your side, you set out on a quest to kill the dragon and get your heart back. Combat is the star of the show in Dragon's Dogma. Devil May Cry's stylized action routes are prominent in every attack. You have several choices of playstyle between 3 starting classes: Fighter, your classic sword and shield wielder; Strider, the rogue that makes use of daggers and bows; and Mage, who, well, they use magic. Synergy is needed to succeed in the harsh wilderness, with combo skills like shield drum to call aggro via the fighter, or mages imbuing weapons and elements like fire. These skills all link together with one of Dragon's Dogma's more unique features: grappling. The party can grab enemies to hold them in place for other members to attack. For larger foes, you can climb them to attack specific weak spots, such as clambering up to a Cyclops' eye and stabbing it to neutralize its vision. The more underappreciated aspect of Dragon's Dogma is the open world. Being the first open world game ever created by Capcom, along with online functionality, Dragon's Dogma was a technical miracle. Built upon Capcom's MT framework, which was used for Resident Evil 6, Lost Planet, and Dead Rising, Capcom's proprietary engine would allow for players in Dragon's Dogma to travel from one corner of the world to the other with zero loading screens. The world is created with a sense of verisimilitude. Goblins hide in dank caverns, griffins swoop down and steal oxen. Wandering off the beaten path doesn't usually lead to wondrous dungeons and rare loot, but usually a nice spot of scenery like a white sand beach or abandoned castle with a female-only bandit group. Every NPC has their own routine with a dynamic day and night cycle, which can lead to quests failing if not delivered within the time limit. If the NPC is killed, this too will ensure the player fails any quests related to that NPC, while enemies are more hardened and appear in greater numbers at night. All these elements mesh together to create a breathtaking yet grueling experience, even after being told, "Wolves hunt in packs," for the 1000th time.
Wolves hunt in packs. The tribes treasure. To seize rich and valuable resources.
Wolves hunt in packs.
Wolves hunt in packs.
Our strength brought us victory.
Upon release, Dragon's Dogma was polarizing, receiving mixed reviews. Some critics praised the game with 9s, while others gave it more average 6 or 7s, citing technical problems, the lack of meaningful content in the open world, and the shallow quest experience was commonly criticized. Though, with the help of a bundled-in Resident Evil 6 demo, Dragon's Dogma was able to become that million-unit blockbuster promised in that executive meeting in 2008. An expansion titled Dark Arisen was released a year later, adding much needed quality of life changes, as well as the notorious Bitter Black Isle, which was a reworked version of the Endless Tower from the original design documents. Though touted as a success both commercially and critically, Dragon's Dogma fell into cult classic territory until its highly anticipated sequel 12 years later. Capcom released many different projects that were shut down. One such project was the Pond Community, which was a Flash-based site and message board that rewarded players in-game for completing community challenges such as screenshots and sharing gameplay information. Dragon's Dogma Quest was a spin-off released for the Vita and iOS with wizardry-like gameplay, but the most notable project was the Japanese-exclusive MMORPG Dragon's Dogma Online, bringing true multiplayer to the beloved gameplay of Dragon's Dogma. With a resurgence from re-releases and several multimedia projects like the Netflix anime, it's hard to see a time when this was an almost forgotten sleeper from Capcom in their most experimental era. And while today the sequel piques the interest of many, we can remember a time when Dragon's Dogma was indeed a textbook definition of back of the rack.
Alright, so here we are. We're talking about Dragon's Dogma 1.
We're talking about the first one.
The original Dragon's Dogma. Yeah, let's talk about it. When's the first time you heard of Dragon's Dogma? Or what was your first exposure to it back in the day?
First exposure to Dragon's Dogma was the demo. Way back on Xbox Live. I downloaded the demo because I knew I was going to buy it because it had a Resident Evil 6 demo attached to it. So I played the demo, then played Dragon's Dogma. I was like, okay, this is cool enough to buy. Bought Dragon's Dogma just to play their Resident Evil 6 demo, and fell in love with the game afterwards.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you real quick if you remember like the marketing or the was it in magazines or
I do remember.
Did you just hear of it from the?
Yeah, from that, and then there was a Games Informer or Game. What's the other one? It was Game Pro or Game.
Yeah, I think it was Game Pro. Yeah. I think.
Yeah,
that
it was one of those
Wrong,
magazines. They had like a big ass cover spread of like, I think it's like the main art piece where it's the Arisen guy and he has the like sword aiming at the dragon. I was like, okay, that looks cool. It's by Capcom. That might be some Devil May Cry stuff. Okay, I'm cool with it. And it's like I'll keep playing.
Yeah, I think that's what I used to do is I was like so into games at that point. Like that was like my peak like no life in games around that point. So that was 2010 around there. I had a PS3 and what I would do is I would go to IGN.com www.ign.com. It's so funny to like when you say the full thing. And I would go to like their next games released or whatever for like that month.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It used to be like on the side corner because it used to be like columns and shit.
Yeah, and I would just
Yeah.
see like, well, what's coming out, and I would click on every fucking. This was when like there wasn't so many titles coming out that you couldn't keep track, and it was just like fuck, so much is coming out. This was like when there was like maybe 2-3 titles coming out that you might have been interested in, and that you could realistically pick up and play. Yeah, so I saw Dragon's Dogma, and I was also a huge Capcom fan. Coming off of having played Resident Evil, and I knew they were like a Japanese developer, so in my mind, my like weeb mind, I was like,
It's got to be good.
ooh, this is like there's like that Japanese developer bias that you immediately have. Square Enix, Capcom, fucking
It's
hell
gotta
yeah,
be great.
it's gonna be amazing, And so I think did Skyrim come out?
Yeah, because that was 11/11/11.
Okay, so Skyrim was out a little bit later.
Yeah, because I do vividly remember my friends making fun of me because they were still playing Skyrim and being like, bro, Skyrim, this thing is crazy, man. I'm a dragonborn. And I was like, yeah, I just killed the dragon, though. And they were like, you're lame ass Japanese games, bro. Hop on Skyrim.
Third person, boo.
Play Battlefield 3, bro. What are you doing? Yeah.
So that's when I sort of like first was exposed to like what Dragon's Dogma was. And I was like, okay, I'm interested in this. And I went and pre-ordered it immediately. And I found out later that it came with the Resident Evil 6 demo, which was obviously like a huge plus. Yeah, I remember picking it up, and me and my girlfriend at the time, she was also like a heavy gamer. We just went in on it. Like we both bought copies, and we were like, we were quoting the shopkeep. What does he say? He's like, Masterworks all. Like, what does he say?
The Masterworks all. You can't go wrong.
I mean, I loved it at that time, and it was like it was an exposure to something, to like a like a realistic fantasy, dark fantasy that I wasn't really into. I was into it for a little bit because of Lord of the Rings. It was like a sort of like dark fantasy, sort of like gritty kind of feel to it. But at that time, at that age, I was more into like, anime, like bright colors, stylized, kind of stuff. So this was like the antithesis. But I was like, this is still amazing. Like, I love this. This is so good.
Yeah,
and I think also that's
medium
why Skyrim.
fantasy. And it's
yeah.
in a good way. Like, it feels grounded in everything you do, from shooting arrows to how everybody talks. You're like, oh, okay, this is just Tolkien for real.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was telling, and we'll get into this with the presentation, but I was telling Elise, my girlfriend, that basically it's crazy that we can still understand that dialect, because they're saying shit that I'm like, wait, what does that mean? How?
Bro, every time they say all, I'm like, what are you saying?
Which is basically something, that's what it means. It's like a something, like,
yeah.
Or yeah, like they say so many phrases that are like really of that like old English dialect. I don't know if that's exactly right, but we still understand it. We're playing a full game where like they're talking in ways that we don't hear at all. Ever. But I'm still able to translate it, But then I was thinking about how like where you're from, this sounds so racist for some reason. Where the fuck you're from, and what's that? That talk that where it's like you're saying shit, and I'm like, what? I don't know what that means.
I know
like,
what you're talking about. I have
you've
certain
done it
moments. I have to catch myself on the podcast sometimes too, where I'd be like, yeah, Ja, like, for real, it'd be like that, though, you know what I'm saying? And I'll be like, oh shit, let me fucking speak English, bro. Because in my head, I just said the most articulate shit in the world, bro.
Yeah.
I can't control it.
It's so funny. I don't know if it's like just a East Coast thing or something, but it is. Yeah. Just the dialect in this game was really, really interesting.
That is interesting too, as well. Speaking of that we both played this game at launch and loved it, and somehow this game still like went into the back of the rack somehow.
Like, you and me have talked about the idea that this game, we qualify it as back of the rack, but this game has also become like a cult hit in a more mainstream way. But like back when it was released, it like fell to the wayside. It was overshadowed absolutely by like Skyrim, like, and I think something else came out as well. That
Kingdom of Amalur. I think Asura's Wrath was like a month before that. It was a
Resident Evil
lot of-
6 came out a little bit after too. That just like completely buried this game. Nobody was talking about Dragon's
I was
Dogma.
still playing Street Fighter Tekken at that time.
Yeah, so
I think that dropped like a couple months before too.
And to see that it's like gotten so much. Well, I mean, they obviously re-released it with Dark Arisen, so they knew that they've gotten a lot of cumulative sales as opposed to upfront sales, you know, like a day one like blockbuster. It was more like, well, we sold softly on launch, but over time they've sold a lot more copies, which had them like, okay, well, let's do the Dark Arisen remaster or whatever, you know. And I think that also was like a bigger and
then let's port it to PlayStation and then
Yeah,
let's port it to PC. Because I remember a lot of
Yeah.
my friends now that are like excited for Dragon's Dogma 2, they got on because of the PC port. I was excited. I didn't beat it on PC. I bought it to support it and stuff like that. And I kept screaming to everybody like, please buy Dragon's Dogma.
Play it. Yeah.
We need a second one, please. Just support it. Just show them that niggas care. And people fell in love with it. They liked the systems and stuff like that. So I think it is just a testament of just word of mouth and constant re-releases. Kind of like Resident Evil and like a lot of Capcom games. They re-release a lot of their old games over and over and over and over again to the point to where it's like I can't not play Street Fighter, Hyper Street Fighter 2.
Right,
Like,
right.
I have to play it. It's been released on every console ever. Same with Mega Man X. You have to play. You own like 4.
That
of
is
them. I
true.
know you
Yeah, they do do a lot of re-releases, but that's interesting. That's sort of the interesting thing with games is that unlike movies, when you do a remake or a remaster and bring it to like the modern era, it's like it's a more positive thing in the game industry to do something like that. You know, like having games stranded on archaic hardware sometimes is a bit like, damn, I wish, you know, we were just playing Death by Degrees and Dark Sector. It's like it'd be kind of nice if this was just on PS4 or 5 and it was just running at 60 frames or whatever. Like,
yes,
it would maybe
like
I don't know,
it would hit.
And there is something to be said about, you know, with film where it's like George Lucas redoes he like redoes his like the originals and adds CG, you know, and people hate those because he's like tampering with like the original like creation and like the you know, the sanctity of such an amazing sci-fi film, right? But with games, it's so different, which is interesting. It's like, no, go back,
redo the
fucking
graphics,
clean up, yeah, redo the graphics, touch
give me
everything
a new
up.
soundtrack.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, Persona 5 or Persona 3 Reload is a great example, right?
I just beat Final Fantasy Pixel Remastered. It has boost.
You did?
It has everything. It's a lot of, and it's like I to myself, I felt like I didn't get the full Final Fantasy 1 experience that everybody that grew up or played that game got because I was playing the Pixel Remaster, and it's like, oh wow, graphics are cool. Okay, the orchestra's cool. Okay,
Right.
I can boost the EXP up. I can just stop encounters. So, you know, it's a gift and a curse.
That's true. Yeah. I think that they can. I don't know. I don't know. It's just the mediums are just very different, and I'm always made aware of that in so many ways. Where, you know, people that play games have a different appetite, a different tolerance, a different expectation of a lot of stuff. You know, and audiences sometimes aren't willing to play games that are archaic, like an older Final Fantasy, where it's like the encounter rate is like, you know, every 5 steps or something. It's just like, fuck, you know, and the combat's not super engaging. But at that time, if you respect it enough to realize that at the time, that's what made it special, and that was how engagement was driven at that point. And
there was nothing like that at the time.
There was, yeah. So I guess in some way you do pervert the time and place that it came from when you start adding like, well, let's. At the same time, we did play Final Fantasy 12 on. Like, we sped that bitch up. Yeah.
I was times 4 in it.
Yeah. But I mean,
okay. I it still left a lasting impression. And until
It did.
I play them all, it's still going to be the best Final Fantasy.
It's definitely one of my favorite JRPGs for sure. Let's get into the presentation of this beautiful game that we both
played on PlayStation 4s with updated graphics and
yeah, full disclosure, we played the remaster of this. And I think that's okay to do that. I mean, I don't think there's a
I feel like there hasn't been enough changes per se with the system to make it like, oh, this is a completely different game.
Right. Yeah. It's the same base game. They polished some things up. I think it's in 4K as well. Runs at 30 frames. It has less bugs, steadier frame rate, which
certain
I mean,
quality of life changes. Like
yeah.
the Fairy Stones, $2,000.
Yes, yeah. Certain things I think make the game a more polished experience, which I think is okay. I think sometimes we're not very technical in terms of like our deep dives here, our retrospectives. We're never talking too much about like, oh well, this game is I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I'm trying to basically say that
where it's like we're not going into like it has dips. We're not Digital Foundrying it.
Exactly. Yeah. We're not super. Yeah. So we don't really care. Like we'll play the best version of the game because I'm sure that the creators are probably saying like, yeah, play Dark Arisen, not fucking. You don't play the original. Just play the one that we remastered, cleaned up, and it's like running smooth. Play that one. You know?
Right.
So I don't think it's a transgression to play the. That's why someone in our Discord, I think it was
set
Frames.
The tone because Blade Storm, the very first game we did play on PlayStation
exactly.
4 instead of PlayStation 3. So
yeah. I think it was Frames in our Discord. One of our friends, he bought a copy of Dragon's Dogma for the PS3, if I remember, and I was like, "What are you doing with that? Like, why do you have a copy? It's like, why do you have a copy of that? Like, are you gonna play that?" He's like, I think he said that he was, and I was like, "That's crazy," because like why would
bro?
Yeah, like why would you, unless you have to, which we play a lot of games that are stuck on PS2, PS1, whatever. But if I had a choice, I would play the version that is just more polished and more steady. I don't know. So I was just like, why do you have it? Why are you gonna play that? You're making it hard for yourself.
Yeah, I kind of get it though a little bit. Yeah, for certain games I can get it. Like I don't like playing like I own the Devil May Cry HD collection, but I don't like playing it. I'd rather play the original PlayStation 2 versions. I don't know. For me, it just feels better on a PlayStation 2. It looks better on a PlayStation 2 CRT. But for certain games, I can see. Because my first experience with Sonic Adventure 2 was on GameCube. And I can't go, like, I've played it on Dreamcast before as well, too, watching uncles and stuff like that. So I've seen it on and played around with it on Dreamcast, and it still feels good. But like any version after that, like PC, Xbox 360, PlayStation 4, it just feels gross to play. I can't play it. The HD graphics just make me go like, no.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
I think that's sort of where I draw the line is basically Final Fantasy 12 is a good example where Final Fantasy 12 has built in a widescreen mode, but you can play it 4:3 on a CRT or whatever, right? The remaster is just in widescreen. And I don't know, sometimes playing a PS2 game the way it was released without any of the enhancements is pretty cool, playing it on a CRT. But a lot of the PS3 games, that era was so bug riddled and so like unstable with frame rates, that sometimes I'm like, why would you choose to play the PS3 version except for, like a good example is when they remastered Silent Hill 2 and 3. And, I think Konami lost the source code for those games, so they completely botched the remaster where it's like they don't run smoothly, but as long as the remaster is like a clean, like a straight up upgrade, and maybe, a remaster should obviously keep everything intact. Everything should not it should be a pure version of the game. A remake is when they really can take liberties on changing things. Like Resident Evil 2, they changed the camera position and, you know, some of the aspects in that. But Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen on PS4 is basically a remaster and not like a remake.
Yeah, and I
So,
believe they
so it
dropped
is.
it on.
So it is
I
the
think,
core game.
I think they dropped it on PS3 as well too. Like I think towards the end of the PS3's life cycle, I think they also dropped like a remaster. Yeah, they did drop a remastered version on PlayStation 3 as well too. So
A remastered or just like a complete edition with
I
Dark
guess
Arisen?
better word.
Yeah,
Yeah, complete edition.
yeah.
They dropped on PlayStation 3. So I assume that also has the bug fix. I mean, the frame rate would still probably be ass because it's PlayStation 3. Just like just like another game in this franchise, but with the next generation of consoles, it will feel good because they can iron out the performance issues. So, and besides, you got to think about this from a technical standpoint. These two games are the only open world games that Capcom has ever made. Just like how 2 is made in the RE engine, which was specifically designed for linear single player games. The Dragon's Dogma was made in their proprietary engine. I think it was MT Frameworks. I think is the name of it. Yeah. So think about all the games they made with that. Lost Planet, all the Street Fighters, Bionic Commando. Like Dark Void. You can see exactly the limitations in all of the rest of Capcom's games and catalog throughout that generation of like, they all have the same technical problems. They all have the same things. It's an engine issue. It's not a game issue per se. So I can't really fault it on that because it's like, I'm going from here all the way to the other side of the world with 0 loading screen on a PlayStation 3. That's insane. Not even a stop and pause like, oh, now loading like Oblivion or Skyrim does. It's just straight. That's insane.
Man, that's so funny. That calls to mind the MT Framework engine that they used. I don't know specifically that it was that the engine was bad, but I think its compatibility with the PS3 architecture and all that is sort of what made it's what made like a beautiful mess. Yeah, so there was a lot of games that had that engine, and I think what's interesting with the remaster is that it still has that same engine, right? But given more room to breathe with the PS4 or PS5's, hardware, it runs beautifully. Although I think it also limits. It wasn't running at 60 frames,
right? I think it still was running at 30 frames on there.
But it was running at a solid
it's a lot
consistent 30, yeah. But I don't know. It's one of those things where, of the time sort of thing. I mean, when I was playing Dragon's Dogma back in the day, 10 years ago, I don't think it ever, it didn't come to my mind like, oh, this is running like ass. It's just like, well, whatever. This is just the game. Like, I didn't really understand too much about optimization or like things like that. They didn't really strike me unless it was terrible.
But this is a bigger question. Does the performance ever really hinder you? Like, have you ever name a game that you've actually played that's the performance you were like, I got to put this down. This performance is horrible right now. Not talking like glitches or bugs or anything weird that would happen while you're playing, because I know every Fallout, Oblivion, Skyrim, like they all have bugs. They're all glitchy as hell, and I could say this game sucks, can't run like that. But I'm talking like genuinely, like I can't play this game. It runs at 2 frames a second. Only game I could think of was Stolen, that we were supposed to play back during season 2. That was probably the worst experience I've had, like playing an actual video game, because the frame rate was like 14 the entire time, except for cutscenes.
What comes to mind is Musashi. When I played that on the PS3, there was a bunch of visual glitches that made it a little bit unplayable, in that it just looked, there was textures that were being stretched and pulled and like flashing. Yeah. I was like, oh, this is not the way to play this. I don't want to play like this. So I had to buy a PS2 in order to play it natively. But yeah, I don't know. It's sort of different because it is sort of the name of that's just the name of the game with this podcast, right? To sort of endure those difficulties. And also now as I'm older and I play games that are 60 frames and I like understand more about how things run and how things can look smeary and all this, other stuff, I am a bit more picky because I know what like a smooth game that feels good is like to play. Whereas back then, 10 years ago, I didn't know. So I was like, whatever, I'll play anything. Game. Yeah, like it didn't matter to me if Lost Planet ran super disgusting and 15 frames as you're fighting a giant monster. I was like, cool, whatever. That's just the game. Maybe it was optimized poorly, but I didn't really care. I never judged it on that basis of like how it ran. Nowadays though, I'm more hip. I just know. So it's
you
just
can feel it when you play PlayStation 3 games.
Yeah.
You feel that as soon as you enter a room, you're like, ooh, it's chugging right now. You can hear the console like screaming, like you're like, okay, you're really going through it right now. But
yeah. And ultimately that affects game feel for us. When we play something like Dark Sector or Raccoon City, you can really tell, because we were playing games on the PS5 that run at a smooth 60 sometimes. And then like for this show, we go back and fucking play Dark Sector, and it's just like, oh yeah, the game feel is immediately ruined a little bit because it's just
you can feel it. Yeah. And I have to limit myself because I have this PC that can run Monster Hunter Rise World or whatever at 1440p. I can run Grand Theft Auto, all this crazy shit on this computer, and it's like if I go back and play Dark Sector on my like PC keyboard and mouse or Operation Raccoon City just PC and mouse, I can make it 1440. I can make it look beautiful as hell. It can look upscale, anti-aliasing. Like I have more options to make it look and feel, and it'll all run at 60 frames because I can uncap the frame rate. And it's like, but that's not the experience you're having.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I would come in and be like, yo, Dark Sector is so fucking cool, man. It was smooth as hell for me. I don't know what you're talking about performance, but it's like, that's not how most people played the game.
Right.
It's a back of the rack because you went to GameStop and you saw it was at the bargain bin for PlayStation 3 games, not in the bargain bin for big box games. It's because who the fuck was going to GameStop to buy PC games,
Yeah, where were people buying PC games at? I feel like I used to see them at GameStop. There was like a little section. Like
I remember when I was working there, they finally got rid of them. I forgot what game came out. I think it was Diablo. I don't know. Something came out. And I remember that was like the last big box.
A lot.
Yeah. I remember there was a section because I was there when they got rid of Wii and GameCube. That was like the last ones they got rid of. And then they were starting to like slowly like condense 360. And then they were like, yeah, just get rid of all the big boxes. Get rid of all the Vitas. We're going to put the Switch right here.
Yeah. I feel like PC is one of those things that definitely just moved to digital sales because the big boxes just didn't make sense. Yeah. Because people just do Steam now, right? For PC gaming. Like no one's out buying fucking a big box for fucking, I don't know, any PC game.
Gotta put the CD in.
Yeah, I gotta get the CD-ROM, the DVD-ROM, yeah. But anyways, yeah, so presentation-wise, this game is really fascinating, and I guess we'll stick to talking about it in terms of the PS4 Dark Arisen Remastered, just because obviously there was more glitches and bugs in the original, but I think this world, the presentation, this being Capcom's first open world is fantastic. The visual design is very grounded. It feels like a real place. It feels like somewhere you would go. It feels natural. It feels meticulously crafted. And there's like just so much to it. Forests, there's canyons. There's no deserts really, but there's vistas, there's grasslands. It's just, but it all feels natural to the continent that you're on, Grancis, the country that you're on. So I mean, yeah, you're not going to get a huge variation. You're not going to get jungles and deserts and things like that.
Ice mountains and anything like that.
Yeah, but it's a really fantastic world. It's very well designed. It's beautiful, and the lighting engine, I think, especially, you know, in this remaster, makes really makes it come to life in a lot of ways. Like the lighting sometimes when it strikes right, I'm like, damn. I remember this on the PS3, and even then I remember thinking like,
Yeah, this
this
lighting is
looks
good.
great. The lighting
Dark.
is good. Like,
How dark it is at night and having to actually use a lantern and how illuminate, like how low of illumination that is. And there's
yeah.
a lot of God rays and like the way that the sun
Yeah,
just
yeah.
beams on everything is really beautiful. Like every
Yep.
time I fight the Griffin, I'm like, this is gorgeous. I don't know.
It feels like an untouched land before like technology. Like it just feels so pure.
Yes.
Like it just feels like everything just feels, you could almost like smell the fucking trees and like the sea as you're like, it's just really well done. Like it was very impressive to me. And then this is coming off of a game like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth where I don't know, there's some artificiality about that game to me. I don't know if it's like the UI or just like the mission structure, but playing this, it just feels so organic. Like you're just exploring the world. You're hearing the boots step on the dirt, you know, you're hearing the sand, the trees are all swaying. There's like a realistic connection that you have with everything that I feel
Yeah.
like just ties it together. I was like, wow, this feels really good, Capcom. What the fuck?
Yeah, especially because the quest, like especially with the UI, while it does take me out of the game a lot when you're going through your inventory and you're like, oh shit, I gotta heal real quick. Pause in the middle of flying in the air,
Hmm.
heal up, hop back in on some Death by Degree shit. But it is because the quests don't show like here's a giant arrow pointing at the guy. Here's the guy, talk to him. It's like here, just go there and you got to talk to people. You got to figure this shit out. You got to
Right.
find the objective on your own. I like that because it makes me like I was a lot of times I felt like I was opening the map like I was pulling it out of my backpack to survey the land and be like, okay, it must be around this area. If I go down and then move up this hill, but I know that path always has a goblin or a chimera, so let me go around this way and I'll go at night so that this spawns. It's very interesting, especially once you have to deal with the way that monsters interact with you and the environment. It's uncanny to think about that even today that's never been done other than this game and Shadow of the Colossus, just being able to climb monsters. It makes
Yeah.
them feel tangible. It makes them feel less like a beat stick. And a lot of times they do feel like a beat stick, but it's like, okay, I'm really slicing at this monster. I'm seeing his legs get cuts and bruises. Everything just feels lived in that way. And it just adds that much soul. I
No,
love
yeah,
it,
it
man.
does. It adds a grittiness, a tangibility to it. I think what's actually interesting that we don't think about often, and I think it's just sort of a limit of video games, is that think about all the things that you can do as a human being, as a person, when you're interacting with anything. Let's say that you're about to get in a fight, obviously, extreme example, but there's so many things that you can do in that fight, right? In a game, what they have to do is take that fight that you would have in real life and limit the scope of possibility. And what they usually do is just have you punch and kick and do a special attack and all, you know. But I think that extra layer of being able to throw a rock, being able to jump on top of, being able to interact with them in that way just brings that sort of interaction with you and your enemy in game up a level that's closer to what we can experience in real life and how we interact with the world around us. And I feel like that really just gives Dragon's Dogma's overall feel just that extra layer of like I feel like I'm there almost because I can do that one extra layer of like, oh, that's a giant creature. I should be able to. I mean, how many games have you played at that point where there's a giant creature and you just can't do anything but slash at its feet?
You're right.
You know,
I
you
can
know, you
climb on the
can't.
back of this chimera and slice its tail off. And it
You,
can,
you go up in the air with it, you know, and it's just like there's nothing stopping you, you know.
yeah,
It's just like
it will
it's
drop you.
it's
It will throw you off. It will drop you on the ground. It's so cool. And then also just the fact that the attacks have like weight to them. when you run up and you slice something, it has like the hit stun and the way that the effects gravitate on the screen with motion blur and everything. It just makes every attack feel good. Like every time I used the full moon slash as a fighter, I
Yeah.
felt like I was like, oh, I am slicing everything. That is a full.
Yeah.
Or when I block
If-
and do the deflect, and it stops the screen. Let's go like, hey, you just blocked. And like zooms in.
I think the combat here is extremely special, especially because at that time, I sort of want to make a comparison. So Demon Souls came out around that time, I want to say. And I didn't think about this at the time.
Dark
but
Souls is coming out around this time as well, too, because this was all 9th grade. Yeah.
Did Demon Souls, the original, come out 2009?
I think it came out earlier. Yeah. Because that was the end of 9th grade going into 10th grade. Yeah. Because I remember that. Because I remember it came out the same day as 2K. And because I bought 2K. I remember that.
That's
I do
awesome.
remember that. So I know it was 9th grade. So it was around that time. So yeah, Dragon's Dogma, I know was 9th grade. So
Demon Souls, the beginning of a new genre, like a blueprint laying out a new genre. I always describe Demon Souls as basically Mario in 3D because it's so, enemies are respawning. You kind of have to memorize where they're going to come and all this. And I mean, maybe not Mario, but like it's a Metroidvania, really, like in some sense, or at least takes heavy inspiration from that game philosophy. So anyways, these two games are very similar, but Dragon's Dogma is sort of like asking, okay, let's do the combat, or let's do the world of Demon Souls somewhat, and let's make the combat more, I don't want to say like mainstream.
Responsive?
Yeah, more responsive, less heavy, less methodical.
less
Because
punishing.
less punishing. In Demon Souls, when you strike, it's like you're committing to that strike. And
Yeah, this is very Devil May Cry-esque. And I remember a lot of the marketing, that's how people was always describing it. Like, bro, it's like Devil May Cry, but it's like
Yeah.
Skyrim, but then you can climb the monsters like Shadow of the Colossus. And it's like,
Yeah.
I guess it is an amalgamation of all three of those. But yeah, it's fast. It's twitchy in a good way. It's not too fast like Devil May Cry, where you're blooping around like a Super Saiyan everywhere. Rest in peace. But it's more like,
it's not like a Dynasty Warriors, right?
right.
Like it doesn't feel like weightless. You don't feel overpowered. Your character feels like they have real meat to them, and that there's gravity sort of holding them, like they're fighting against gravity to do their moves. So like it feels good, but yeah, those animations just look, I mean, all of them look great. It's something that I feel like Skyrim is just never captivated me on, was the fact that you couldn't really see yourself. Like I've always liked seeing myself in a game. Not me, like who I am, but my character. Right.
Yeah,
I like
and when
seeing,
you do use a third person camera, the animations just look so like, oh.
it is a video game. Like it feels like, oof, yeah, it's rough.
Like that game works best in first person when you can't see how shitty the animations are.
Yeah, definitely. I remember playing it and toying around with like third person and first person, and I was just like, there's something about the combat that just doesn't feel right about that game, right? And that's because those developers just don't have the chops for combat. I don't think that's their focus either. That's not like where they're really trying. I don't know. Like
Maybe,
combat's not a pillar of Skyrim. I wouldn't say. Like combat feels like a pillar of Dragon's Dogma. Like when they were at the drawing board, it was like, okay, what if? Actually, no. I think there was an interview where Itsuno, like he talked about how Western games, like they all feel fucking gross, and he's like, what if we're action game masters?
Let's just make a Western game.
Let's make a Western ass game, but with like actually good combat that feels good, and they've succeeded like crazy.
Yeah, and from the very first time where you start the game up, you do have the premise of, I have to defeat this dragon by the end of this game. So the combat has to feel good, especially with the scale of the dragon. Grigori is he lives up to the hype. When you try to market this game to people and you're just like, yeah, you're a guy and a dragon steals your heart. You got to kill the dragon to get your heart back. And it's like at the end, you actually fight the dragon and you actually have to climb. It's the exact same dragon you fight in the beginning. You got to climb it. You got to attack its weak points. But now you're a master. Now you're seasoned. You can actually achieve it. It's something that'll never be. That's what, once again, back to Shadow of the Colossus. These two games are the only games I believe ever that will achieve that sense of scale and awe that you're this little tiny speck actually thwarting this giant insurmountable foe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's true, and I think the size differential is a huge part of what makes this game just even. I mean, just up there with the greats, I would say. Well, let's talk about the monster design since we're talking about the creatures that you're facing. It's, you got goblins, which are usually a little bit shorter than you, so they're small. You can carry them, throw them, fucking, you
Hold
you
their
fuck them
arms
up.
back.
Yeah,
So your teammates
there's
can
wolves.
slice them.
Yeah, there's wolves, dire wolves. You fight people that are your size, bandits.
There's lizard people.
Yeah, there's lizard people that are a bit bigger, a bit more imposing, and then skeletons. There's which I mean, all these are sort of like medieval fantasy enemy
traditional
tropes.
D&D.
Yeah, traditional. Yeah, nothing new there, which is perfectly fine. There's no intention of doing anything brand new, and that's okay. They're I think what they got here is good. And then you have griffins, which are obviously a lot bigger and more imposing. And you have
Harpies.
the chimeras, the harpies, So you have all these different sizes and enemies and interacting with them in different ways. You can grab onto a harpy as it flies and it'll pull you up. You can get onto the back of a saurian or saurian?
Yeah,
Is that how you say it?
Yeah, saurians, yeah.
There's golems. Yeah, the golems, there's, which I only ever fought one of.
Oh yeah, those golems are every time I went through that same spot, that golem respawns, and I was like, bruh, this shit is so hard. I gotta attack each. It has like these little magical
Weak
cylinders
point,
on it, and you have to attack each one. And there's someone like the bottom of his feet or someone top of his head, but it's still a golem. It's still swinging and using magic, so it's an incredible fight. Cockatrice, the giant turkey.
Yeah, which is basically just a chimera as well.
Yeah. Then they got the Cyclops. Griffin. That's the biggest one that you'll always
The Cyclops. Fight. Yep. The Cyclops is, and then the armored Cyclops, and then there's the
trolls.
The trolls, the ogres. Yeah, fuck those guys.
And the Beholder, the giant tentacle eyeball. Oh man.
Bunch of monsters all look like they were ripped straight out of a storybook, like a fantasy storybook.
Straight out the
really,
monster manual.
really cool to see. Yeah, like they feel classic. There's a nice classic feeling to it. It's not like it's not reinventing the wheel or anything. It's just like, here's these classic monsters that you're gonna fight. This is a classic tale, in some sense, like a classic fantasy tale, and that was cool that they had that restraint, because they could have really Japanesefied.
Yeah, you could have Japanesefied it.
They could have really went like, let's
here's some yokai. Here's a oni you gotta fight.
Yeah, they could have done
a giant dog or some crazy shit.
There was a respect to Western monster, like classic literature monster design. Like, there was a respect there. But anyways, as you're interacting with all these monsters, they're just different sizes, and it's so cool to be able to, scale a golem, but then also fucking throw a goblin. And it just adds to the overall just experience as you're engaging with all these monsters. Real quick question: did you have a favorite enemy type to fight?
I actually really like the Chimera, but I also really like the worms.
I'm gonna save you real quick here. It's Chimera.
Chimera, tomato.
Just in case someone in the comments.
No.
No.
But yeah, the worms were pretty fun to fight. Every time I saw one, like the very first one I I saw that. I love that the game and even the pawns tell you, like, you cannot defeat this, bro. Run away. You need to leave now. And then by
Yeah.
the time that you can actually defeat one, you're like, oh, okay, I get to just now. This is practice. Now it's time to
Yeah.
go fight Grigori. But I like that one because they use magic. They seal your pawns away. They just grab them and go like, you need to leave. And they're talking shit because you can understand dragon speak. So they're talking shit to you like, you're not a real arisen. Get out of here. Like that's cool as hell, man. Every time. It's
Wait,
fun
who
to
is-
fight a dragon.
Who is Grigori? Is that the main dragon?
Yeah, that's the main dragon.
Oh, I didn't know. Oh, did they say his name in game and I missed it?
Yeah. They say
Yeah,
it a
you
couple
did.
times. They say it
you
a
missed
couple
it.
times. It's mostly like afterwards. I think towards like the end, and then like afterwards when you're doing the post game stuff.
Yeah, the world just has a very storybook, like sort of like Aesop's Fables or like a Beowulf feel to it, which we don't get too much of nowadays. Which is okay, you know. Obviously, I think you get more stylized stuff. You know, we just had the recent Grand Blue Fantasy. You know, we had Elden Ring. Everything's a bit more stylized, more interesting. But it's kind of cool to go back and just have like the classic creatures that inspired so much of these, you know, fables and stuff. It would actually be cool if there was more lore around like the harpy. You know, the harpy is such an interesting like enemy, just as it's flying, trying to put you asleep, not unlike the siren, you know, from like the seas.
Or if
you know,
there was like
calling-
more to like each class, like there was a goblin king and he was like a fat ass. And he
Right.
got carried by
yeah,
other
yeah.
goblins, or if there was like a harpy queen, like a giant harpy
Yeah.
that would attack you with a bunch of harpies
I-
around you or something.
The more recent time I've seen a harpy in modern games is in Final Fantasy 16, right? You fight. I don't know if she's classified
Aruda?
as a harpy specifically, yeah, but she's like very inspired by what a harpy is. I think what adds to the presentation is when you fight some of these creatures during the day, it's one thing, right? But when you fight like a troll at night,
Bro, it is
there's something
terrifying.
creepy. Like there's something just unsettling about going into a cavern and your lantern is the only source of light and you just see these eyes in the dark coming at you. You know, and you can fight some of the ogres in the daytime, like in the middle of the forest or something, and it's like you feel more comfortable, it'll like just naturally. But when you're in a fucking like
Cavern,
in the
you're
dark,
like, whoa, hold on.
even ogres like feel scary and menacing. Like we've played video games for so many years now. I think it's so hard to make you afraid genuinely for something that's not intentionally trying to be horror, like, you know, like a Resident Evil 2 or whatever. This is horror in the natural sense, like a more organic, like, oh, we're not trying to scare you, it just happens to be night and this creature is also huge and terrifying and you're probably weren't planning on fighting it and it
You
just
got no
ran
healing
into it.
items, you're weak.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, you know, good fucking luck, you know, as you watch all your pawns die and your fucking
Thrown around.
escort guy also dies.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just really like the whole I guess the classic literature storybook vibe to it. Like I think it captures that really good, even with the menus, right? Where it's like parchment paper. you know?
Right. And the
Like-
credits
like
is a book as well too, where it pops
Yeah.
up and it shows your
like
character.
like a
and
storybook,
then-
yeah.
Yeah. We're cooking right now. Hold on. It is very fairy tale esque.
Yeah,
You're
like
right. I was just
Like
always like,
it's-
hey, it's cool. Capcom made a Western game, but no, that's
yeah,
very
there's
spot on.
there's a huge respect that they pay to sort of just Western fables, you know, and stuff like that. And it's really, really cool. It's almost as if you could take any 1 hour that you played in this and make your own little like story about it. Like you could read to your child like, oh yeah, it was 1819 and you know, me and my other pawn, like it just feels like a, you know, very
Yeah.
classic adventure story.
What did you,
I guess
what did you think of, I guess, speaking of items, what did you think of all of the items in terms of like their appearance, like costumes, equipment and stuff like that?
yeah, the costume. Yeah, I think the costumes were really I don't know why the word costumes is tripping
It's
me
throwing
up.
you
But
off.
yeah,
Yeah.
the armor, yeah, like all the armor, all the like loot that you could get, I thought was really cool. I thought it was better in that, like when you have more of it, you have more flexibility. But in the beginning stages, you don't really, which makes sense, you know, you don't give everything to the player all at once in the beginning, but there's sort of a limited amount of pieces of clothing that you're working with. But I think that once you get like towards the middle of the game, you start to really be able to explore with different capes, different undergarments, different like shoulder pads, neat boots, all this. You can really start to create a look that you might like, even though if it gets really expensive. Or actually, yeah, it does get really expensive. And I think that's where I spent a lot of my money too. Just
Yeah, same.
just trying to
Change it
trying
up.
to make my character. Yeah, I'm like, okay, well let's do this, you know. But no, I thought everything looked good. Anything that was metallic looked metallic. It had like a sheen to it in certain light. Obviously, the limitation of simulating like a cloth texture wasn't there, so everything does look a little bit flat. But I was very impressed that almost everything looked great on both men and women.
Specifically, the leather armors for me look really good because there's of course obviously like you know the dresses and all that stuff that they have littered about, but the leather armor for me, I felt like there was going to be some pieces where I'm like, oh, like you know the midriff ones where it's like this one only covers,
Right.
it has a belly exposed or something like that, and I was thinking like, oh, this is gonna look gross on a dude, but then it's like, oh no, it looks like a
Yeah.
thief.
Yeah. It was really interesting because you could just tell that there was a lot of thought put into how things would look like on a woman and a man, and there wasn't any shortcuts. There's certain pieces that are, you can tell like this is definitely for a man, this is definitely for a woman, you know. But there were, I think, I don't know if you can tell me this, but it seemed like if you picked up a chest armor set, it's like the game in the code had two variations of it, depending on if you're a boy or a girl. So if you were a boy that picked it up, the same piece of armor, it fit differently, right? Like it didn't have
Right.
like it was almost a whole different armor set, but just like
The same armor,
like a male
kinda, sorta.
version.
Yeah, maybe, possibly, maybe. I gotta look.
I
'Cause I've
think
had a
I
lot
think
of
that was the
female pawns
case.
in my party, specifically like fighters and stuff like that. So maybe
Yeah, because there was okay.
I
There's a
do know which
leather
one you were
armor
talking
piece.
about though. The one where
Yeah, it has like a metal piece on the breast, and then there's like a metal like shoulder pad to it,
right,
and it
yeah,
looks different on a man. Like it's a different. I don't know, but or I don't know. I played as a girl, so it's kind of hard to. And my pawn was also a girl, so
I had no frame of reference.
yeah. Like, I feel like I saw other pawns wearing similar things. I was like, oh wait, is that the same piece of armor? But that's what it looks like on a guy. Like that's kind of cool, but I can't confirm.
Yeah,
But anyways, yeah, the armor, clothing, all that, fantastic. Some of my favorite, I would say, in RPG, because a lot of RPGs don't give you the flexibility of an clothing, like
and
layer
then
of
armor.
clothing, and then armor on top of that. You know,
Yes.
especially for console games. You know, so you know you got the chest region, you got the head, the shoulders. Well, chest and arms are together, I think, and then you got your pants, and then you got your boots, and
Yeah.
you could essentially mix and match all those. And there are a couple of armor sets that were just all one piece. I didn't use any of those, but if you know if that's your thing,
Yeah, those weird like
Uh,
DLC ones where it was like you can dress up as this character. Like
yeah, you can. Yeah, nah, yeah. So yeah, it was really good. And you know, I will say here, as you're probably watching this after the release of Dragon's Dogma 2, I don't know if there was player feedback or time constraints, but they really reduced the amount of customization for your armor in Dragon's Dogma 2 compared to Dragon's Dogma 1, which I thought was a very fascinating choice because it felt like such a huge part of the role-playing experience, you know.
And what's really weird is that there is an eye slot. So like you can equip like a different helmet and then a different eye. So like there's like at the Rift store they have like glasses you can buy.
Oh,
and
right,
that-
yeah,
and you can
yeah.
equip those and a helmet or a hood or something of the sorts like that. But
Doesn't
there
make any
isn't.
sense.
but
Yeah.
upper body and then lower body, like that's it. And it's like that's kind of weird. At least let me choose my boots.
Yeah,
At least let me
yeah,
choose
like
that.
even in something like Diablo, you get the choice of
Yeah, you get both shoulders, you get
yeah,
both
your boots,
gloves.
gloves. It's so bizarre to me that they took that out, but we don't want to get away from talking about the original. I do think that's what Dragon's Dogma does well, is what is the sort of customization, and I feel like you can really make a good looking character and make yourself look like a heroic whatever you can make yourself look like an assassin or a barbarian, or you can really tailor it. And there's a lot of armor pieces that are hidden throughout the world, so there's an incentive to go around looking for shit, because like you might find
Some
a
cool
really
shit.
cool piece of gear, and you'll look cool, you and your pawn will go around looking cool as fuck. But also I do want to add that the armor too was surprisingly, and this is actually a testament to the art design. So while it's not like super stylized, the armor is varied, but it all feels like it fits the world. Like there isn't an armor piece where I'm like, that just doesn't
That's
even
too
feel like it's
futuristic.
part. Yeah, like that doesn't feel like it's part of this world. For all the varied pieces that they have, boots and all this, it all feels like it's part of the world. Even if you're wearing like it just all felt right, which was, I mean, that's kind of hard to do, like to design all these armor pieces that are going to fit within a very specific style of world. Something like Diablo 4 or even Diablo 3, there's so many armor pieces, so they have to sort of venture out into like something that's more this, something that's more that.
This is all
you know
fire. It's lava armor or something like that.
yeah,
You
it's
don't
like
get
what the kind,
anything like that. You don't even get like a
yeah.
dragon armor that's got like the head for like a shoulder piece or nothing.
Yeah, no,
It's
nothing too crazy, no. Which might not be everybody's cup of tea, because it's too like, well, it's boring, but I feel like it fits like the
aesthetic that is going for it.
this Lord of the Rings ass game. Like it really fits.
Yeah, it's not Final
Like the
Fantasy. I'm not trying to look like a cool dragoon or anything like that. I'm fantasy guy. And you gotta think
yeah
about where you come from. You're a lone fisherman, and you're ragtagging. You're not a fighter by vocation. I just picked up a sword and I'm learning how to use a sword. I'm just learning as I go. So of course you just put whatever armor on as you go and mix match and do it all together. It makes sense in lore, especially with all of the armor pieces that they have. It's not like you're gonna have like a fucking Chris Redfield outfit, but be in fucking
they better
Dragon's
okay
Dogma.
for just real quick. I hope they add something like that in Dragon's Dogma 2. They need something.
At least some cargo pants.
Yeah, Jesus Christ! If you guys are gonna like restrict us to just the fucking top and bottom and the head, like give me some out. Let me get some
Yeah,
fucking DLC where I can. Come on, please,
at
God.
least. Or
Um,
maybe we just haven't gotten to that point yet. Maybe there's a bunch
That's
of cool
true.
shit
That's true.
in the second or third continent or something, and we just haven't gotten there.
Something that I actually did appreciate about Dragon's Dogma, was that aside from having like female armor, there is actually like lingerie armor.
Yeah,
And like the lingerie armor, I mean, well, there's a couple of pieces that you can like sort of swap in and out, but again, it fits the world. But it's like they also weren't afraid to do like, hey, if you want to play like this, there you go. If you want to be covered up completely, there you go. Like it's all there for you, for everybody to role play as whatever kind of person they want to be in that world, which I thought was like, I mean, I guess it's of the time, but with Dragon's Dogma 2, I should probably just stop drawing comparisons, because they're not gonna.
Dragon's Dogma 2 did
I'll
not
stop.
release when we recorded this podcast.
Sorry, guys. Let's go back to Dragon's Dogma OG and talk about the combat real quick. Not in how it plays, but I just want to comment on how readable it is. So we mentioned of how great the animations look, but every attack I did as either a fighter or the assassin, they all were so readable. Like I knew what attack I was doing at any given point, you know. Like I would initiate an attack and it wasn't confusing. And I make this point because I think some games, even till this day, struggle with creating a differentiation between your normal attacks and then a special attack, and then making it readable sometimes. And I think this is like a good animation principle in to follow, but also they did well in this game because it's not so stylized that when you're doing your basic attacks, your swinging, your strong attack, you know those are those two attacks. But then when you do your weapon skill, it feels and looks and just is different. It has so much power behind
the
it.
camera zooms in, it like does a slow-mo animation to like show like, okay, he's finishing up this attack. Boom, it activates.
Exactly.
There's a big stutter. Every particle, every ability, when you used it, you immediately knew because the camera panned enough to let you know like, hey, you're doing something special right now.
Exactly. And it would add maybe a trail of fire to your sword, or like a 3D effect to make it look like you're
seeing
swinging
like the
fast.
sparks fly off the sword when you attack somebody or something like that.
Yeah, so that was something I just think was really just done well.
Speaking of combat, that was another thing that I appreciated, especially now in a replay, was when your pawns would like grab an enemy and be like, I'm holding you more. You need to attack from there. Like, I like those cutaways because it makes the fight feel less dynamic. Because if you're just playing a game, and you've played a couple games like this where you have an NPC with you or something and they point something out like, how about over there? And it's like, where the fuck is over there? I wasn't looking where you were looking, unless they show like a giant, the little rectangle thing they be throwing up. It'd be like, hey, over there. Like, if they're not, like, I like that Dragon's Dogma says, no, the camera's panning as if you're looking and your pawn's over there and you're in the heat of battle. Like, that slow-mo of like life or death. That's what's going, okay, I need to go over there right now. I like that. It added so much to combat.
It adds to the to the overall presentation too, when they're all, your pawns are like yelling shit during combat, like it's weak to fire, or like it's like they're just, it feels so hectic and it feels like everybody's in it. Like, quick, finish it off, as he's holding a fucking goblin and you're like, oh shit, yeah, let me get over. Like, it feels like feels very cinematic. Like, it was a very cool, it feels cinematic without leaning too much into taking control away from you. Like, it feels like a game still, and it's just it's done so well. Like, I just don't know why this game doesn't get more praise on its combat alone, and it's just like that whole feel, because it's done well. Like, it's done so well. We talked about the lighting a little bit. I think the day and night cycle of this, of Grant Soren and Grants is just in general beautifully done. I think just the way that sun comes up in the morning and sets, it's just like, it really obviously so many games have a day and night cycle and all this, but there's something about Grancis that when it's daytime, you did feel a bit more comfortable, a bit more confident, like, all right, cool, I can go do this. The minute it starts to become night, it's just like, fuck, shit. What am I gonna run into? Like,
I need to get back to Grand Soren right now. I need to just sprint on this road.
Exactly. And like you were saying earlier, it's pitch black. Your field of view is shrunk by like 10 times. Like, you can't see more than like a couple feet in front of you, which is realistic. Obviously, there's no light pollution. So it's just straight up pitch black. And the way like your light is hitting, I don't know if you noticed, but it's cool the way your light hits certain objects and it casts like shadows.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, what the fuck is that? You're like, holy, like, I don't know. It's just really, it's so well done, dude. I'm like, what the and I don't know if the lighting specifically is realistic, but it's stylized enough that it just feels right.
Yeah. I think that I know we've been praising the hell out of this presentation, but there is a couple gripes that I have. And the main thing is really with the readability of everything. Like, when you're like, there's no video previews for skills. So when a skill says, like, for me, it was with the Strider, the toss and trigger ability. I didn't know what the fuck that was. Because my pawn was a Strider and I put it on her and the toss and trigger is activating. And I'm like, I don't even know what ability that was. Like, I never saw it until I switched to the Strider, and was like, oh, that's what that ability is. Never mind. That's not a good ability for her. And the descriptions are just a little too vague. It's just like a 360 slash. Okay, but
Yeah.
Does it have any special properties? What is it? Is it just and it's like, no, it's just a 360 slash.
It's interesting that is the case, given that these are the Devil May Cry people,
Yeah.
and that in Devil May Cry they had the previews, right?
Practice modes, all that stuff.
So it's curious that they were like, nah, not gonna include them.
Yeah. Same with the item descriptions, because there's like you can press square and you can change from like a detailed description to a condensed description. And sometimes, like, I don't know what it is with the convention, and it annoys me to piss still when I think about it, of all of the items being like, this restores a small amount, a fair amount, a good amount.
Yeah.
Like, what is that amount? Is it 10%? Is it 5%? Is it 16? Is it a finite 150? Just tell me it restores, because you already showed me the HP numbers. Just tell me it restores 120 HP, and I would be like, okay, that's my weak heal potion or something like that. Compared to,
I was about to disagree with you there, but then you mentioned the fact that they do show the HP numbers. They show those numbers, so it's like commit to either being obtuse and not direct, or commit to either being detailed and show all like the numerical values of everything. And they didn't. Yeah. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I agree with you with both the video and the items and stuff like that. Descriptions were weird.
Yeah, like especially with like petrification. And it's like, oh, because I don't know if it's magical or physical, but the panicas, or is that how you pronounce those? I never know how to pronounce that word. Panaceas. There we go. Thank you for it, because I honestly been calling it a panica for like my whole life, bro. I don't know.
Has no one said anything to you?
Nobody has said panacea in a fucking. Is that what it is? What did you just say?
Panacea.
Panacea. See, I'm gonna fuck it up, bro. Panacea. See, look at me. I was saying panacea.
I mean, that's close. That's close.
Fuck it, bro.
That is close.
Panacea.
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 Yeah.
Panacea.
If you look at the word, it's exactly how you would imagine.
Yeah, you're right.
Panacea.
See?
Oh shit.
No, like I didn't know. So like a lot of times I would carry those thinking like, okay, this is gonna cure a physical debilitation or a magical debilitation. Then I get petrified and I'm like, oh, these don't cure. This isn't magical or physical. This is just it's separate category petrification. I need a separate heal for this. Just small things like that. Because it's like, I don't know, is being doused, is that physical?
Oh, like, right. Yeah. There was no
qualification because they all look magical. So I don't know if I'm poisoned, downs. What debilitation is it?
Was there a difference between a magical and physical? Yeah. So I think magical would be something like silenced or being cursed or being on fire.
Or is that exactly? Because is that physical?
Yeah. Well, that's why. Okay, so we'll get into the gameplay aspect of that, but that is why that's one of my criticisms of the items. And this is my criticism for a lot of RPGs in general. But sometimes I'm like, look, just give me an item that cures it all. Why do I need to carry 5 petrification debilitation? Yeah, like for every. There's like there's 20 different debilitations that your character can have. Different status ailments, and you're giving me all the. I'm like, why? Let me just get one that cures all of them.
Because you never know when you actually are going to need.
Yeah,
each one, because it's like I got all these antidotes, and now for half the game I'm never poisoned because I never fight anything poison. So I just have 99 antidotes for no fucking reason.
Yeah, that was I had a lot of certain things. I'm like, am I gonna need this? And I never needed any of it, unless maybe I was playing on hard and like specifically fighting an enemy. But even then, like I have my pawn who can heal me of most debilitations, and then also if you have I want to say it's the panacea that cures
everything.
And then so I don't know. It's just, but I think that's an overarching problem with a lot of games that get a little too cute with all the different potions and antidotes that you might need to heal this or that. Yeah, concoctions. Yeah. What did you think? I'm curious about this. What did you think about the music
I love it. I love it. In terms of making me feel like the epic hero that I am, it, it's great. Like when you finish an enemy and it goes, like I'm like every time I was like, yeah, that's good. I just defeated that thing.
I got Monster Hunter vibes, by the way, by every time you finished killing
and then
an
it would
enemy,
do
I
the
was like,
cutaway.
Monster Hunter. Yeah, the cutaway of them like flopping around. It's like, oh my god, this is Monster Hunter for sure.
No, for real. And I like the music. It fit the tone. I know we were talking about this the other day where it was like, where did that rock song go that was on the title screen? Because I remember in the original version, you could start.
Yeah, they had like a whole
heavy metal ass song, and it's like, okay, that's cool. But now it's just like a lady yodeling.
Yeah, she's singing the main theme. The music was sort of whatever to me. Like it wasn't bad, but you know, like in the beginning, I was like, okay, cool. Like it fits the vibe. It's getting the job done, right?
Right.
But then as I was getting towards the end, and I was on my 40th hour, and I'm nearing the boss fight, and I finished the game, and I was like, wow, those themes really built upon each other and came back in the end in a way that was really thematic. I thought that was so cool. I love shit like that. And I like listened to the soundtrack and I'm like, wow, that theme is so fucking awesome. Like I want to do a remix on one of those themes because it's so like haunting, but like really cool. It's funny because it kind of reminds me of the Persona, the Velvet Room theme a little bit. Like I get it's hitting some of the same notes. Like, do you know what I'm talking about?
I know what you mean.
The Velvet
I know
Room?
exactly what
Yeah.
you mean. Yeah, because it is funny.
I mean-
I was playing Persona 3 into Dragon's Dogma, so I know exactly what you mean of like.
Yeah, there's like a sort of
the vibe.
operaticness to it. And it's hitting, I don't know if it's in the same key or something, but it's definitely like a similar.
They hit the same
Similar
note, that
sound.
one high note. They definitely hit that
Yeah,
same
yeah.
note.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that's it. Yeah. But anyways, I thought it was really good. It was very appropriate. I also thought there was a lot of restraint with when to use the music and when to not use music.
Right.
Coming off of Rebirth, there's music constantly during Rebirth, and this is typical of JRPGs for the most part, where there's a town theme song that is on loop. There's a
Battle theme
song, battle theme song, that's on
conversation
loop.
theme
There's
song.
everything. I'm like, okay. And with Rebirth, it was just in excess to me that it was so nice to play a game that knew like, when do we play music to really enhance this moment, but when do we stop playing so that the players can hear the ambience and really settle in and kind of reset and recalibrate. And that way, when the next piece of orchestral music comes in, it hits harder because they haven't heard music in like 20 or so minutes or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what's made nighttime so tense, is because it was so quiet. At most you would hear like a cricket or two, and it's like, oh
Yeah.
I am in here. There's nothing around. Your pawns aren't even speaking. You're like, oh, I'm
Guys.
really here, bro. Guys,
Say
please.
something.
Where's the wolves hunting packs?
God, it's just so good the way they decided to handle all that stuff. When you go into the Witchwood, which is an area, which is like the dense forest area of Grand Cess, there's a theme that plays, and it like fits the Witchwood so perfectly, and then the theme fades out, and you never hear it again. At least I don't think, because I only went there twice. I didn't hear it again. But I thought it was just brilliantly done because, I mean, it's just so conservative. It's like, here's this really haunting theme, and now you're in these woods, and now we're gonna slowly fade it out, and now it's just like
You're
that
in
set
here.
the tone. Yeah, that set the tone, and now you're just like, this is kind of this is kind of weird. Yeah, it's like mysterious, and I don't know. That's something that I didn't know that I liked until playing this game. I love video game music as much as the next person. I think in an open world, you have to know when to shut up. You have to know when to let the open world soundscape be
Take
the
you in.
soundtrack for a little bit.
You gotta let it bring you in. And I think they only brought in combat. I mean, like during combat or completing a mission or when you were in town and stuff like that. But it's like, that makes sense for music to be there. When I'm just traveling and I'm just staring at trees, I don't need some whimsical music. I don't need Kokori Forest playing in the background while I'm going through this. Just let me live here.
Did you play Dragon Quest 11?
No.
No. Okay. Well, there's a field theme that is constant in that. The battle theme and the field theme that are just constantly playing, and they're so annoying. Like they're good. They're good, like they're good songs, but like because you're on an 80-hour adventure.
You're
You're listening to the same you're listening to the same battle theme. It's like, can I just play in quiet? Like I think I turned the music down and I just fucking
The sound effects only. I do that a lot of times with certain games where
like,
after a
why?
while I'm like, all right, I get it. Like
Yeah.
if it's very repetitive. Like
Yep.
Yeah.
But there's games where obviously you need the music. You think of your Bomb Rush Cyberfunks. You think of your
But Bomb Rush is different. Bomb Rush is different because in the context of Bomb Rush, you have like headphones in. Like you pull out your, like when you change songs, you pull out your phone, you scroll through your MP3 list, and you can hit shuffle, you can press your songs and it starts, and you can hit skip.
It's part of the design, yeah.
Yeah, so it's
but I'm thinking of racing games.
Yeah.
Like racing games, you obviously want a good soundtrack. But yeah, I think Monster Hunter World is also one that knows when to put in music, knows when to stop. I think it's more on the more music more often, but it's still like more controlled. Like there's moments of quiet where you're just kind of like exploring, you're just hearing the world. And I think that's just very important. I think
makes
that
me really curious of your like opinion for
about what?
Dragon Quarter. And this, well, the city is a fighting game, so it's different. But Dragon Quarter, when you play it, and
I
the
mean, I don't know
ambiance in there and stuff like that. So,
what are you saying? It's a loud ass game.
No, I'm not saying it's a loud ass game. I'm just saying like, we've been having our JRPG like midlife crisis of like, are we, and going into an actual traditional JRPG with Dragon Quarter for this season. Yeah, it's gonna be like, so because this isn't technically a JRPG. This technically a JRPG, but it's technically a Western RPG in terms of how everything works. It just plays like a Japanese company made it.
I don't know what it's an open world RPG, I suppose. Like it's I would say it's in line with a Skyrim because of the amount of like there's like quest choices and you can we'll talk about that, but
yeah.
I'm gonna make one more statement here for the presentation, and that is that the look of some of the monsters, which I already talked about, but specifically the opening segment, and anybody who's played this will know because it's one of the best probably looking pieces of it's a really cool sequence in video games. When you get to the encampment and you fight the Hydra, the Hydra looks so fantastic. I remember even back in 2010 when I saw that scene, I was like, this is like something straight out of God of War. Like how cool this looks. And like it's like wrapping around the towers in the encampment, but it looks so clean, the animation on it.
And then
it's like crushing it. Yeah, and I'm like, what the fuck? That looks great. And the design of it also is very imposing, and I'm like, wow, that looks incredible. But yeah, other than that, I think just the overall presentation is up there. I think it's very inspired, just like Demon Souls is with like its world design, really leans into a dark fantasy or just medieval fantasy sort of vibe to it. It is funny though that there's not a damn horse in sight. It is
not
really
at all.
funny.
Not even like in town, but you can't like do anything with it. Like it's
like everyone's just walking, and it's so you don't really notice it. And I noticed it more in Dragon's Dogma 2, not gonna lie. But
yeah, they be using oxes for everything, bro.
And I'm like, really? We're all walking? No one has horses? It's just a universe where no horses exist, and it's kind of just funny. But that's all. I mean, that's all I have to say about presentation. I mean, I took a lot of notes on it, and I think it's top marks. I think about our Boater of the Year and or the not Boater of the Year, but presentation or whatever. And I'm like, this is just great.
This is a sweeper. Not gonna lie to you.
It might be. It might sweep. Okay, story. I don't have that much to say about the story, but I did love the themes of it. I don't know. I like this idea of layering, and this is not new for this game, but I think this struck me hardest playing this game. And that is that you're the Arisen, and there's like the in-game lore, the in-game story. You're the Arisen. You're fighting this dragon. You're going on this journey and becoming stronger to overcome the big challenge of the dragon, and then eventually to take your place as a sort of guardian of that world, and then deciding to not be the guardian and then merging with your pawn's spirit. Spoilers, by the way.
Yeah, becoming their soul.
Yeah, becoming their soul, which sort of gives all the elements of the game some sort of purpose, which was really neat. But what I liked about the story specifically is that theme of tempering your will, because ultimately as a man, in some way, you want to be a hero, right? Like there's a natural inclination for, and maybe even like just people in general, we want to be the hero. I think it's cool that this game opens up with you just living a peaceful life, a life of just relative complacency and just like, you're fine. This dragon interrupts that. And then he takes your heart and he's like, you fought against me. You're the only one that stood up to me. And so now you are chosen to be the Arisen. To be the person.
Kill me.
Yeah, you have to come and kill me to get your life back, I guess, in some sense, right? I guess the way the story goes is that the dragon is sent there to temper a person, to make them essentially better, to have them train and to improve their will enough to take over the guardianship of that world. And so they go on this grand adventure and you level up and you're becoming stronger. You're becoming the hero that you're meant to be. And you have this choice at the end where you can proceed to fight the essential guardian of that world, or you can go back to living your peaceful life, which is a legitimate choice.
There's a choice before you even fight the dragon as well too. Where
that's that's right. Yeah,
he gives you that choice. Fight me now, or or you can take your beloved, you can leave, and you can become the king of the kingdom, and I'll just disappear for another 100 years.
Yeah.
So
which is what the king did in the previous battle or whatever. That's why the king was all like pissed or whatever.
And it's very interesting now seeing the subcontext of the king, and even like if you talk to the jester, he just flats out tells you like, yeah, the king is playing you. He's just sending you to do a bunch of mundane tasks, and he's actually sabotaging you because he's a coward.
He knows, like he knows the jig is up. Like his time is coming. It is fascinating. It's a really, really interesting story, and it got me to think about, I guess, just this story and the way it's told. It just really got me to think about the meta of what it's saying, of why these sorts of stories are so compelling, because essentially, like I was saying, your pawn, or not your pawn, your character is essentially having to become better, and they have to live a life of constant challenge in order to be strong enough to take the place of the seneschal, which is essentially the guardian or the god of that world.
You live, and so you eternally. You have to have the willpower to survive and craft the world for eternity through life.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not like a fun job. Like it's not like it's a job that must be done, and it's like the highest. Like this is a crowning achievement. This is, like a, I don't know. It's a job that must be done. Not a loyal job. What do I want to say? A very respected job.
Yeah, because no matter
an honorable job, an honorable job, I guess.
Because no matter what, a dragon's going to form, and I believe the lore behind that is that, specifically, if you decide I'm going to go back to the world, like I'm not going to fight the seneschal, you drop out of the portal and you become a dragon for a new Arisen in another world, essentially. So you become the dragon for somebody else, and now you're tormented with, okay, I'm a dragon now. I have to choose somebody so that I can also get out of this internal loop as well. It's like no matter it's cool because the story is kind of telling you that like the only like even pawns, these lifeless
Right.
beings, the only way for you to truly live a life with free will, you have to defy all odds. Like you're not supposed to beat a dragon. You're just a lonely fisherman. You're not supposed
Exactly.
to beat God in a fight because you were a lonely fisherman. And now that you're God, you're not supposed to off yourself. We can say that we're not monetized. You're not supposed to kill yourself.
Definitely not monetized. Yeah.
You're not supposed to kill yourself and destroy that balance. And I think the coolest part about that was doing Celine's story, because then you get to slowly uncover that, oh, she was a pawn. And that's why everybody thinks she's weird, because she doesn't have those human traits yet, because nobody's taught her. She's lived in the woods by herself. And then you eventually learn that her Arisen also did the same choice that you did when they became the Seneschal and took their life to give life to Celine. Yeah. So then once you learn that secret and everything, then Celine becomes you. Because when I finished the game, Celine was my beloved. That made that finale make so much more sense, because once you land, your pawn, of course, they have your appearance, but they have your pawn's voice, and they're like,
right,
stop. And Celine immediately goes to my pawn, and she's like, you're just like me. They chose the same as my master. You have a life now. Don't waste it. Do whatever you want to do. Let's live together. Come with me. Let's do this. This is what they wanted for us. And it is nice, because low key, I wanted my pawn to be my beloved, but I don't know how. So couldn't gift him.
Yeah, it's honestly, I thought it was a very powerful story. I think there's some loopholes and it's very gamified, but I think it was cool because the story's not so in your face, and it is really more about this idea of becoming something, making something of yourself with will. You know, I feel like the Japanese, especially, you see it a lot in anime, where this idea of will, free will, of being able to power through something because you have the will to do it, you know, because you have the means. And also it's sort of like a counterpoint to being lazy and stagnant, you know? Like when you think about being lazy, it's like because you don't have the will to do what you want to do, you know? Like, and this whole story is a sort of like it's that theme in a game. It's like a story of like, you know, it's like you reaching out and grabbing your destiny, and it's done in a way where you're the character and it's not like a group of characters that are doing this thing. So you kind of detach yourself.
Yeah,
you know?
There's no secondary
because it's like, oh, well, exactly. It's like, oh, well, it's these characters that are doing it. It's like, no, that's the character you made, and you're going through all these because you fought the dragon, and now the loop is going to start, and you have to break. Well, I mean, you don't have to break free. You could not do that, but I think it's a very, like, I would love to sit down with what's his name, Hideki Itsuno, and talk about if the themes of that story are really about the player and taking control of your life and willing things into existence and sort of tempering yourself. I also think that those sort of themes are very those themes and that sort of story is very common in like dragon stories, you know? Like the dragon represents sort of life as a challenge, and the hero goes up to meet that dragon as a challenge. And so it's not just as simple as like, oh, here's the hero and that's a dragon and that's it. It's like the dragon represents something, you know, and he's all of life's misery and disdain and hatred and destruction. He's all of that, and you're the hero and you're facing that. And I feel like that's so powerful, and I feel like it struck me somehow. Like the game isn't sitting there explaining all that, right? But I'm like thinking about like, that's what this is, though.
Yeah,
that's what the
even
story
after you
is.
Beat the dragon, and everybody's like, "Yay, you beat the dragon!" It's not happy. Half the town is destroyed.
yeah, you're just like, huh, okay, so there's something else left to do. I mean, yeah, there's a whole lore, obviously, and gameplay things that obviously sort of change the theme of the story in some way, but it was really cool. I really liked it. I like the idea that the king betrays you because he's like, well, I made a selfish choice,
That
and
means you
then
must have made a selfish choice too.
yeah,
Ain't
and
no way
and
you
then
beat
to
that
his
dragon.
character, exactly, yeah, and then to his character, he's like, well, fucking, this guy's trying to just take my power, and it's like that is totally something somebody that would make that decision. That's something that that person would do, right? Like based on his past, by sacrificing his beloved to become the king and gain on this power, him acting in that way is totally on brand, totally on character. It's like, yeah, you would act like that. It'd be cool to see like a redemption arc for him, but it was just like interesting, like this sort of all these like themes that are like not said to you outright because the story is so like light. It's kind of like, well, yeah, this
Yeah,
is
you have to
happening, this is
dig to really
happening.
find the story. Like that's why I think the
Yeah,
story hit for me now more. Is because when I played when I was younger in ninth grade, I was just clicking through people and stuff like that, not
right.
caring about what this minor NPC has to say. Like, why am I going to talk to the jester multiple? And then it's just like
Exactly.
like a Souls game. You have to talk to them multiple times to get
Yeah, to get a
everything
good,
that
yeah.
they're having to say. So you talk to these people and they're saying one thing and it's cryptic enough that you're like, hold on, let me talk to you a couple more times. Let me see what's going on.
Yeah.
And I dig that. I also think it's extremely ambitious that like everything in terms of gameplay was tied into the story.
Into this. Yes.
Like the way
Yeah.
that pawns come from alternate realities and they just bring that knowledge to you, and everybody's like, yeah, they're
Yeah.
just pawns. They're just weird. I don't know. I don't know where they come from. But or
Yeah.
the Everfall, how the Everfall is, and I do have the design document. I'll put it up on the screen, but that was what the Everfall was originally supposed to be. It was supposed to be like a tower.
Mhm.
And that's why the Dragon is there that everybody has to slowly chip away at like a
Yeah.
fucking gotcha boss.
Yeah, I know. When it popped up and said that, I was like, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I
engage
was
with
like, I
this.
ain't even gonna
I was
fight
like,
this
nah,
thing.
no.
But like you're supposed to climb the tower, and like the Everfall was supposed to be a concrete thing that everybody experiences, and that's
Oh.
why you go through the loop of going up and
Yeah,
down
yeah,
because it's
yeah.
the same world going through everything. And I think it's very inspiring that they were able to tie it all in. Even the Arisen, even the dragon. It's like, oh, if you don't take this choice, then you just become a dragon for somebody else. This Seneschal, they handle this world, but then there's Seneschals for other worlds, and it's like, whoa, we're getting granular, but everything makes sense.
Yeah, it's very simple, but it's also very heady. Like it's very metaphysical all of a sudden. Like it becomes, I mean, you're just this character and you're doing your thing and you're interacting with things on such a ground level, talking to people, they're talking about their beliefs, they're thanking the maker, they're wondering if the world's going to end with the dragon coming. And then ultimately you find out you get to peek behind the curtain of like the whole metaphysical world, and you're like up there, and he's like, yeah, I created all this, and basically you have to take over now because you proved yourself. So come at me, kill me so I can be released, and now you are going to take over because you're worthy. Show
And
me
even
that you have
then,
the will
he's
to do
begging. He's like, please,
Yeah.
take this
He's
sword
like, yeah.
in this. And it's really cool that it's the guy that you played for the tutorial.
that. Yeah,
I was
I
like-
thought that was such a nice touch. I was like, what the fuck?
He's
This
the
is
villain?
so
What?
good. Yeah, I mean, not even the villain, but just
He's
like
not really.
yeah, he's just like the next guy. I mean, he was a guardian essentially, and that's just the loop. It's like you have to kill me in order to get this, and it's so fascinating. It was so much deeper than I thought, and so much more engaging. And then like obviously each NPC has their own like little side story aside from like that main sort of story. I thought it was cool that the main story doesn't even take you to every place in Grand Cis.
You have to go there
You have to kind of
physically.
yeah, which is like that's kind of cool. I was just like, oh wait, so I got to go explore on my own, encouraging you to go off the beaten path to find like the Witchwood there's no main story event there, but it's a whole like fucking cool
Yeah,
place.
like
Like,
you can entirely miss that if you don't talk to the main chief. And
Which
he's
I
like,
almost
"Hey,
did, yeah.
Weird guys over there. You can just be like, fuck that. I'm going straight.
I don't know. I just thought it was a really good story. It's a story that is crafted for a video game, but has a lot of like classic literary themes of being a hero, taking your destiny. And I think what makes it more exciting is that you are acting as that hero. You're 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 performing all those actions.
Right.
You get to choose if you're going to reach out and take all the responsibility and none of the comfort, or have all the comfort and none of the responsibility, because you get to choose if you want to go back to your hometown of I forget the name, but or you get to choose if you're going to be the guardian of the world. I'm like, that's pretty powerful,
Yeah.
like giving you that choice. I feel like it doesn't get too caught up in its own like lore of things. I feel like it's simple enough to like get that like this is just the theme of it. There's the seneschal, there's the arisen, the kingdom. Like it's not too like, I feel like Skyrim kind of just gets too caught up in its own lore.
Yeah, because now it's like, oh, I'm the Dova king, and then plus you have the different side stories. So it's like, okay, I'm a werewolf now. I'm messing with vampires. I'm dealing with
exactly
this war.
It's not as streamlined, and that's okay. I think that's okay. But I think what makes it special is that the story is simple enough to have like a very powerful theme, and focused enough to still get its point across towards the end. Because in the beginning, you're like, where's this going? Where's the story going?
Yeah, it's very confusing until it's actually confusing until you finish it, and then it all starts to like make sense as you put the pieces together in hindsight. Like, oh, that's what that means. That's what the Dragon's Bane, is that what they called him? The old guy, the dusty guy that was in like a cave on the side, and he was like another arisen, and it's like
yeah.
It's like, yeah, you killed the dragon, and then you didn't go to the seneschal. You just
That's right. Yeah,
he just
he's
stayed.
like, nah,
He's
I
like, all right,
can't.
I'm gonna just do this.
And then he disappears, doesn't he? Or he fades away or something like
That
that.
boy
Right?
dusted away. He said, finally.
Yeah. Yeah, he got that. He got snapped out of existence.
No snap. Crazy.
But yeah, other than that, I mean, I don't want to belabor it too much because I didn't do all the research, but I do feel like this, it just really struck a chord with me. And I did like the way that the Seneschal describes their world, which is like, just as a ring lacks start and end, so this world has no origin. It's like, that's right. When you think about a ring, it has no start or beginning.
Yeah, it's just
like it's just a ring. It's like, it is what it is. There's no like, it starts here and it ends there. And it's like this infinite loop that describes like what they're going through, what their world is like. And I thought that was fascinating. I was like, wow, that is deep on some other. Yeah, like that. I was like, that's kind of cool. Like it's like, I mean, it's just a well-crafted fantasy world with a good lore. I think there are some plot holes, but I don't want to spend hours trying to pick out everything.
Yeah, because somebody's going to tell me, hey, nah, you was wrong, bro. It was definitely, this NPC from this quest that you missed definitely explained everything, and you didn't do it or something.
Yeah.
Bitter Black Owl, something.
Yeah, well, actually, if you play BBI, then you'll know that what you just said is completely wrong. The story and the themes really struck me because I'm at a point in my life where it is just about will to do, like the willingness to do something. There's nothing stopping us from doing anything really, but it's ourselves, and how hard things are going to be is only tempered by our will to do it. I guess, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect
So,
sense.
like,
I know exactly what you mean.
And so, like, I think about, like, all the stuff, like, I mean, you and me are both talented. I think about all the things that I could be doing, but I don't. And, I'm playing this game, and it's having me do all these trials and tribulations, and I'm gladly doing all this shit in the game, right? But then in my own life, I'm like, wow. I'd be too lazy to... I'd be too lazy to do that, And I live a very comfortable life. A very, I mean, obviously there's stress, just natural things that happen, bills and all that. But, very comfortable. I get to, stay here and play games and, exercise, whatever. And going outside of my comfort zone requires also will, it's just all about tempering yourself and becoming better and putting yourself in situations that are quote unquote dangerous or more like challenging, facing your dragon, essentially. Facing your dragon and becoming better and sacrificing a little bit of comfort in order for you to become great and the master of your world. There we go. Bam. That's what I want to say. Let me put an end cap on that, and then
I'm leaving.
we can move
bro.
on.
I got it over, bro, because shit was perfect. We'll talk about that more in the next status check.
Because that's what the story meant to me, and I was like, damn, that shit's like deep. And I don't know. Maybe I'm reading more into it.
You read it perfectly, because that's kind of sort of what I was getting as well out of it too, where I was like, damn, even as a risen, you're no different than a pawn. You're just a pawn to the seneschal.
Right.
They need you to do this loop. They need you to do everything, and it's like in real life, yeah, you're just a pawn to your CEO. It's especially in terms of like this content grind that we go on called Back of the Rack. And it's like, trying to contemplate what's my end goal. What are my thoughts? Like, what do I see myself with this in the coming years? And like, even just Sondi selects, mixes, music, everything else that I do extracurricularly for my own creative outlet. Like, I just need the will. I just need to force myself and put myself in it to actually do it. And that is a great message. It's a great message, especially playing this game, because it's like, no matter what, you are going to be a pawn to somebody. What? How you handle that situation and how you combat that is
I think what often sort of, I guess, scares me a little bit is how comfortable life can be and how enjoyable that is, and how it can make you complacent or not want to put yourself at risk to do better. Like, for example, like my current job, it's cushy, right? Like I get paid a good amount. I mean, I've only been at it for about a year and 3 months. But I know already that I'm not learning anything at this job. I'm not doing anything. I'm not using my skills. I'm using all my skills for Back of the Rack, and I'm like trying to take on side jobs, but I'm like, I could be doing a lot more, but I'm facing the dragon of comfort. Like, that's my challenge. I'm like, I have to okay, let me just fucking quit this job, and fucking go hunt for some other side gigs, or maybe put all of my energy into consistently doing something with Back of the Rack, so then we can actually make it a bigger beast than it is, because sometimes I don't also want to be like a slave to the hobby, because I do like doing this with you, but sometimes I feel like,
and like we said, it's really it's really an archive of our friendship more so than
exactly.
And that's, I mean, I do enjoy it. That's why I kind of try to like rebrand it more as like a book club or whatever, because it's like, okay, if I can get more people into the fold of playing these games with us and talking with us, and then we talk like how we started. We just started talking about the games, and then we started talking about life, and then we got to know each other more, and then this built a friendship. That same thing can happen with any single person in the Discord, and it low-key has, you know what I mean? There's people I reach out, be like, hey, just looking out, just checking in, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's the biggest thing with Boater, and that's our dragon, is just, long as this, long as we're locked in.
Well, sometimes I think to myself, I'm like, damn, what if, okay, for example, I think sometimes the big shakeup, if you were one day to message me and be like,
I don't want to do this shit no more.
Maybe not so rudely, but maybe you're just like,
I'm trying to tell
hey
you,
man, I'm not gonna
be able to be like, hey bro, I'm not trying to do this shit no more.
like I can't do this, or we're gonna have to, stop. Or if one day I'm faced with a decision where I'm like, damn, I'm gonna have to stop doing Back of the Rack for a year or forever, and having to let you know that, because this feels like such a huge part of our lives right now, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think about those moments. I'm just like, what would I do? You know, like what
Play
is
a lot of video
back of the
games.
rack?
That's what you would do. You would play a lot of video games and you would continue to talk to me. That's what you would do. Because that was me last year.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
I took a 6-month hiatus where I was like, look, I cannot do Back of the Rack right now. I got to get my shit together. It's a lot of shit going on right now. I need to get everything together first before I start fucking around with Back of the Rack. And you was there. Even though, you know, we weren't doing podcasts, we still talked every day. You know, we still do the same shit that we was doing before. It's just we weren't playing a game, but, you know, or recording something, you know what I mean? So ain't no different if, you know, if we did the same thing. Because that's the end of the day. It's about to sound anime as fuck. It's about the power of friendship.
It's about family.
It's about family.
It's about family. All right, let's move on to gameplay, which I didn't really get to write cohesively as you did.
Yeah, I stole your flow. I'm not gonna lie to you.
What? I didn't have a flow. What flow?
For the last fucking for transparency, we have like a giant fucking Google Doc where we like keep our thoughts and notes and anything that we find about the game. It's like a giant overview, so we can just stare at that. So if you see us look over to the side, it's because we're staring at that. And like, was it for Death by Degrees or was it for Death by Degrees or Dark Sector? This nigga put fucking like headers in like the gameplay and all the sections. He was like, I'm specifically talking about the soundtrack, and there was all the notes. So I did that for mine. I was like, gameplay, pawns, combat, questing.
That's so funny because I was all impressed by what you did, and I'm like, wait, I've done that before, I guess. Yeah.
What did you think of the pawns? Let's talk about the stars of the shows first, because I feel like we've already kind of tackled combat, and we'll talk about it more once we get into it. But the pawn system is what everybody knows this game for.
Yeah, it's its most unique feature. What is it? Itsuno said that he wanted to create a single player MMO experience, and that's where the pawns sort of came into existence.
It's true, because your teammates are useless. So they do that one clutch thing, and then you're like, "Oh yeah!"
you're trying to communicate with them, but everyone's AFK or something. It's just like, come on,
everybody just saying random shit, and you're like, "I know this already." Yeah. Thanks, Guildmaster.
I thought the pawn system and the way obviously the way it ties into the story, genius. When I first played this game, I didn't really think anything of the pawns. I actually didn't. I took a lot of umbrage with the way that they like the dialogue triggers. So like you enter a specific zone and they say the same shit every time. You enter you do something specific and they say that they all say the same thing.
Oops,
and I'm like,
Haunted Packs. It's Victoria.
I'm like, guys, we've already said this though, you know, or like as you're walking to Grand Six, it's like all roads leads to Grand Soren, or like
we should meet with the dude.
They all just say the same shit, and it just became grating really early on. Yeah. But they also do say some interesting things every once in a while. I think if you have maybe just your pawn and another pawn, you get less of that tedious, like, okay, guys, we're all fucking saying the same shit.
Everybody's saying shit. All four of us are saying something as soon as I finish a quest. Like, stop, guys.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like it's cool because what it does, it sort of personalizes like the objective. Like, imagine what you would see, like a mission objective, and then you would see like all the checklists of where you need to go, and then it'd be a way marker and all that. It sort of takes that idea, the UI element of all that, and sort of synthesizes it into a actual in-game character.
Yeah.
And then they are telling you, hey, follow me. Let's go this way. So it does feel really organic and natural. And that aspect is actually really, really smart and really cool. Because then, like, if you get a pawn that knows where they're going and knows the weakness, like, it's cool because it's not like a pop-up showing like, hey, follow this line to get to point X. Or like, hey, they're weak to this.
This pawn knows about this quest. Do you want to activate assistance? You know, there's nothing weird that.
It's in-game.
And it's cool because, they keep saying wolves hunt in packs. Yeah, they say goblins are weak to fire all the time. But it's better than having a menu and it's just a bestiary that you won't look at. Think
Right.
about it. How many times have you actually looked at a bestiary in a game for reference, like actual literal reference, instead of just like, oh, yay, cool, I can look at the character models.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's cool because they're being in real life bestiary where it's like shoot his chest, aim for the
Yeah.
head. If you cut off his tail, and it's like just in case you forget. And they do say slick shit on the side a lot too. There was one quest, like the Fornival quest, where you have
Mhm.
to like kick the people out of the house. One of the
Oh,
pawns
yeah,
was
yeah.
just like you could also just buy the house from them, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, yeah.
that's an option. But it didn't
Yeah.
pop up like as like a subtitle or anything. It's just something I heard in the background, the pawn saying, and I was like, oh, well, okay, let's go beat the quest this way. And just
Yeah.
having that ability for the pawns to chime in, but it isn't like it's saying like this is what you need to do. It's like, oh, well,
Right.
there's an option if you want to do that, or I heard that you can do this if you wanted to do it this way, or maybe that thing that we found earlier might help you out in this situation. I thought that was cool.
I think that natural conversation is cool that you're talking about, because yeah, they do help. There was the quest where you go and get Salamit's grimoire, and you essentially could create a forgery and give the guy who gives the quest, you can give him the forgery and keep the real grimoire. That's not made clear to you outright,
and that's
but
exactly
one of the
what I'm talking
NPCs
about.
says
The
something.
fucking pawns, bro. They stirred me wrong.
Yeah.
The pawns, they were like, that guy's shady. I don't trust him. I wouldn't give him that grimoire if I was you. And I was like, okay, maybe he's going to do something nefarious. Let me go give him the forgery. And then he comes to help you out later with the Griffin fight with the forgery, and it does nothing. And I'm like, oh, wow, I just fucked myself over.
That's so weird that they said that. I wonder if maybe they were talking about someone else. I don't know.
Maybe, but that was the only reason why I gave him the forgery.
Did it?
Because they
'Cause
kept saying like, I don't trust him. Something's weird
Right.
about that guy. And I was like, all right.
Yeah, maybe to sow in a little bit of skepticism in you to not make the right decision, which is kind of cool. Yeah, I think the whole conversational thing that you're talking about was done. I mean, for the time, honestly, like that's kind of an ingenious idea. Like to have, instead of like there being like a text box that comes up and be like, hey, you can do this or you can do that or you can do this to finish this quest, and then it like disappears.
Right.
Like it's an actual party member saying like, well,
yeah,
your options.
Because think of JRPGs. Usually JRPGs, they do this with your party members, but your party members, it's a static conversation where, you know, there's a boulder in the way and you all stand there and you go, let's have a little tail skit real quick and talk about our options, and then point the camera at what we have to do and then do it. Whereas here it's like that, you just mention it like that boulder looks breakable.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, maybe it's breakable. But it's all in game. It doesn't take you out of the game to tell you to do these things.
Right.
And I like that, especially with the way that their resourcefulness comes into play. With like, you can teach them like, hey, I want you to grab enemies and hold them for me so I can kill them. Or, hey, I want you specifically to go in mine ore, and I want you to just do that. And you can like sit them down and tweak their AI a little bit by talking with them. I thought that was really cool.
I actually felt that system was a bit undercooked.
I do feel
like when
that
you
way
would
too.
When you like speak to them in like the knowledge chair.
I wish it was more granular.
It's like it's super obtuse, like where it didn't need to be. I know like a lot of this game is sort of built around this idea of like sort of self-discovery and like things not being directly communicated, but for something like this, I don't see why you wouldn't just be able to be like, hey, literally let me tell you, like, can you only speak when I haven't heard something before, like when I, or can you, like you're saying, grab more enemies or just use your healing spells only, or like that would have been cool to be able to really fine tune as if like you were actually with them. Like, hey, let me just communicate with you. Just don't fucking talk unless we're in a new area and I need to know something new. And also just fucking
pick up everything.
It's kind of interesting that they really were just like, well, I want you to. I feel like the knowledge share only give you the chance to like change their tone and like how they react to you,
and then like how often they speak, and then if they're aggressive or if they're
aggressive
like
or not
helpful. Like that's it. And I felt like there should have been more of like, oh, if we're fighting a giant monster, do you want me to climb on it? Like, Shit
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, like granular things that you'd be able to actually communicate with somebody because that would feel more realistic. Because I mean, they were going for more realism in this game. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I like the idea, but I think it was a bit undercooked, and I ended up only like tutoring or knowledging my pawn maybe like 2 or 3 times, and I was like, this
Same.
is pointless. Like,
Yeah.
why? This is pointless as hell. Like, I just
Speaking
don't
of
understand.
pointless, the command menu I feel like was extremely useless because it doesn't tell me what to do. Why was there 2 buttons for help? And what do they do? Like you press help and it's like, okay, she's using a spell, but it's like from the looks of it with the pawn command menu is that left does something for one of the extra pawns and then right does something for another pawn. So sometimes I would press left
Oh,
and then a fighter would
I didn't
have,
know
he had
that.
like the springboard, he'll be like, hop on my shield, I'll pounce you up. Or if I had like a healer, they would use a healing spell. And then another time I would have like 2 mages and then one mage would use like fire boon if I press help and the other one would use anodyne. And it's like, what do they do? Like, can you tell me?
Right,
Like,
right.
like help
Yeah,
doesn't
there's a
do
lot
anything.
left
I can
up
tell
to.
them come to me. They're not gonna come to me. Like it just felt like a
Yeah.
useless. But I felt like it was just for role playing, just to be like, hey, yeah, come on. It's like an emo wheel.
I don't. It's confusing because they do tell you that the pawns are sort of like will follow the Arisen to do anything, but then there's a sort of a contradictory design where they want the pawns to have like their own personality, and so when you say like go or help or whatever, they act in their own way as opposed to just being like we're gonna obey whatever you do. It's like they almost gave them like more individuality and less complicity than they maybe should have had. Because if they had more rule following behavior, then when I say go or help, they're gonna help me exactly when I need them to, not based on their AI temperament. Because it feels like that's what the
Right.
issue was. Is like when you would say go, it's like based on the type of AI they were, or the type of pawn AI. They would be like, well, I'll help you in this way, or not right now, I'm busy, or
Yeah.
So it's like I don't understand. Are you your own person, or am I the fucking Arisen and you're supposed to listen to everything I do?
Because I would be, when I was a fighter, I would be holding like goblins. I would be like, come on, go ahead, attack. And nobody would attack. I would be like, help? Hello? I'm holding this guy. Kill him,
Right.
please. Like, this shit is,
Yeah.
it's not what I want to do. But also, I think we didn't really get like a good shot at the pawn system, really, because, the game's old. We were playing it before Dragon's Dogma 2 came out, so I guess we had like a little spike or uptick of other people that were doing like replays of Dragon's Dogma for like pawns, but I didn't interact with it as much as it's supposed to, because usually your pawn goes out, you would go to an inn,
Right.
you would go to sleep, and then it'll be like, hey, your pawn went to 10 different worlds and you got this present, they rated it this way, and blase blah, get more knowledge. But I think that only happened to me once. And then when it happened, I got like 20,000 rift crystals immediately. And I was like, oh, okay.
Wow.
And this is at the very end of the game. Like, I think I
Okay.
was going to the rift crystal to go buy some higher level party members to go fight Grigori. And then it was like, here's 20,000 crystals. I was like, oh, okay. This is kind
That's
of pointless
crazy.
now.
I didn't even encounter that. I didn't think about that. I mean, you beat it before I did. I was playing it up until like this past a couple days ago. I don't think I ran in. I don't think my pawn. No one used my pawn.
Exactly. I was surprised somebody used mine. I was like, what the fuck? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think
Thanks.
anybody used my pawn.
No.
I should have dressed her up more sexy to get more people to.
That's
would
what
have
you
been
should have
the.
did.
Yeah, I fucked up.
I did have a point.
The
but
whole
they
system is cool,
completely, switched on that, and Dragon's Dogma 2. In the context of Back of the Rack, we always say like, if they made a sequel,
Yeah,
and
I
if
know
it
we
was
say
like this.
we said that for both Death by Degrees and and Dark Sector. So now it's just like, well,
Yeah, no, because we
also
have the context of the second game and all of the improvements it's made. So like, I had a point where I was like, I wish there was like, a little more like your pawns had special abilities or like specializations, and I'm like, that's a main core like upgrade. And the second game is like, hey, your pawn can have specializations, and it's like, oh, never mind.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it was in this game. I did read that they did have to cut out about 40% of the content of the mechanics that were initially planned for this game. Yeah, so maybe it was already something that they had planned on doing, but they're like, we don't have time to really like polish it up and make it work seamlessly. It's that is funny. Yeah, I'm reading some of my notes. I'm like, yeah, Dragon's Dogma 2 does improve on some of this for sure. So it's fun. It's weird saying it, but I mean,
Yeah.
like I wrote about how the pawns feel more like NPCs than some of the NPCs do because of how
Lifeless they feel.
they don't have any character, you know. So, but I mean, that was improved upon, which is cool, and it definitely makes the pawns a lot more interesting, varied, and fun, and all that stuff.
Well,
but
I guess the benefit of the doubt with with the gameplay section is a lot of the things that we might have as like gripes. We did write it before, and I think you were like me, where I was like, Dragon's Dogma 2, blackout. I don't need to know anything else
Right.
about it until release. So I didn't know anything that was being done with the game until we were playing it. So now it's funny that we're recording it after we wrote what we were writing before the game came out, and it's like, so I'm just reading
Yeah.
notes like, oh yeah, they did fix that.
Yeah, it's funny. It is funny to read it and be like, oh wait, well that's improved. Oh, how many hours did you actually put into the game total?
I want to say like 37-ish, 40-ish hours, I
Okay.
want to say.
Okay,
I did a lot
put
of fast traveling.
52.
Okay.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did a lot of fast traveling. I did a lot of sprinting through the world.
Yeah.
And I didn't really do a lot of the side quests. Like, I know this, you mentioned to me about the side quest where you have to like sneak into the princess's room.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't do those particular side quests. Like, I've done them before in like my first playthrough through the game, but this time I was just like, let me do the quest lines I didn't do, like Celine or Mercedes and stuff like that. I was like, let me do the ones I didn't get a chance to do and actually tackle those. So I kind of sprinted through the game.
Crazy. I walked a lot. I definitely like really soaked in the world. I used a fairy stone when I was like doing a more beeline thing. Like if I walked all the way to point A and I had to go back to Grand Soren, then I would use the fairy stone and then, you know, to go back. But I would usually walk everywhere. Typically, it was just a fun world to be in. I really liked how everything felt. So this game was really such like a antidote to Rebirth for me, to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So I just liked traversing it more. I was like, this is I want to explore. And yeah, I mean, but back to the pawns. The pawns I felt like were definitely, it's a really good idea. Really good idea. Implemented somewhat haphazardly, but for the most part works. And it's nice to see that they are refining it in Dragon's Dogma 2. But what was I going to say here? Oh yeah, I did think that it was cool that when you're summoning a rift, again, not being in a main menu, it just like being a rock, you go to like an alternate dimension where you physically see all the pawns, and then you kind of just walk up to them and, you know, be like, okay, what's going on? What you got? Yeah, you know.
Nice
and
to
then if
meet
you
you.
really
Welcome
wanted
to the
to,
team.
yeah, and if you really wanted to like if you really wanted to find something specific, then they gave you the tools, like a search engine essentially to like actually refine your search. But yeah, just another cool like in-game mechanic that wasn't like in a menu screen. Not that you're not in menus at all in this game, you definitely are, but not as much. You know what I was thinking that would be cool? You know how The Last of Us, the crafting system in that, where it's like, you know,
You actually got to pull
your
the
backpack.
backpack out. I was thinking the same thing. I think I put that for like presentation where I was like, I really hated like having to open up a menu and it pauses the game. Like I would have much rather like a Monster Hunter scroll through your inventory and then pull that out. Or even if you were crafting, like, okay, craft these together. Like, give me some of that.
It seems like it would have something like that, but it's interesting that it didn't. I don't know. But yeah, do you have anything to say about combat?
Well, I mean, feels good. The game feels good, and
You being an action game fan, you being the Sondi that I know you to be, where does this fall on your action game, like your list of action game feel goodness list? Like, is this like a top 3 feel good action games? Like, where are we?
ooh,
Where's this fall?
I'm not gonna lie, this might be top 2. It might not be 2. I'm not gonna lie to you, because to me,
Okay.
I'm a weirdo. The best
Right.
feeling Devil May Cry game to me is Devil May Cry, the remake or the reboot. It just felt good switching between angel and demons, and the angel attacks that were more
You're talking
aerial
about
based.
DMC?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm weird, but I just like the aerial combat, using the grappling to swing, and then when you would be more grounded for devil attacks and having that dichotomy, it felt good because it wasn't too out of the box. Like sometimes I play Devil May Cry 5, or I see people play Devil May Cry 4 or 5, and then they're using trickster style and they're just zipping and running. I'm like, bro, are you playing Dragon Ball Z or are you playing Devil May Cry? Like after a certain point. And I felt like DMC was a great middle ground of like, you're still chaotic, you're still crazy Dante, but you're not too crazy. You know what I mean? You're doing a lot of crazy shit, but you're not too crazy. And Dragon's Dogma, even from the fact that it's almost hyper realistic, it still feels good. It's like, this time I finally played with magic. I played a Mystic Knight for most of my playthrough, and using magic and having to parry to use like electricity to summon a bolt, or causing like runes on the ground to like cause a barrier so people can't pass through. And even it never gets old. People say it gets old, but it never gets old. Putting down like 4 of the great cannons, which is like a ball of just magic energy, and then you have to melee attack it, and it shoots a bunch of projectiles that home in and attack enemies. And I would just put that down in the middle of a room and then just go to town and kill everything in
Oh,
the room.
really? Interesting.
It was every time it was fun because I would just watch stuff just melt, and I'm like, yes, I'm shooting it with a machine gun of magic. It's cool. It's Magic Archer, which is what I always played in the first 2 playthroughs that I've played of this game. And it feels good to have homing attack arrows and raining arrows and climbing onto things and stabbing it. It doesn't have to do anything super out of this world to still feel as good as a Devil May Cry game. And it even includes it has it has so, and everybody has one, so it's good. I like it. That's all you need.
I actually don't have a list like you, but I would say this is for sure one of my top feeling combat games. I mean, there are a lot of games that we played. They have combat and they feel good and all this, but there's something to this one specifically that just makes sense in every way. Like I said earlier that it was readable. The animations are great. When your weapon hits an enemy, I played most of the melee classes, so when I hit somebody, it felt like I was slashing or bludgeoning, mashing them. Like it just felt proper, And I'm like trying to think back at any other game that feels so impactful, with this, because you have to think too that this game is also an RPG, so the enemies have health bars over them. They have specific health pools. And a lot of that time, that can really remove the feeling of being efficient or feeling impactful, because you're just like slashing at a fucking... Yeah, you're just like blindly, but somehow they manage to balance it out where even if that thing has like a couple life bars, like it feels like you're doing damage. You can see it. There's blood everywhere. It's just like that.
It's falling over.
Yeah, like it just feels right. So this has to be up there, I mean, the gameplay to me is, like Shadow of the Colossus is one of my favorite games of all time. That's up there, right? And the fact that they include like climbing on top of a creature and stabbing them, while not as like epic and grandiose as something like a Shadow of the Colossus, but it still feels good. they were right to make a game in a Western fantasy setting with good combat, because I mean, this game calls to mind like Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers game,
Yeah.
or its sequel, Return of the King. Like, it feels like those, but more refined
And not as arcadey.
You know, which calls to mind, why the fuck can't you just have a buddy with you? Like, even if your buddy could play as a pawn, like your pawn, like maybe they don't get a choice, but then like you just make a pawn and like, yeah, you can play, you embody their pawn for a little bit, you know? Like, come on.
You know, it's funny because I've played Dragon's Dogma online before, and it doesn't feel the same.
It doesn't?
It doesn't feel the same at all. It feels like 4 people playing. You know how crazy you by yourself, you can wipe out a whole room by yourself if you're really good, especially fast. If you're using the sprint and slash, using your stinger, like you could
like it's not balanced.
Yeah, because everybody's crazy. Yeah. So if everybody's crazy, then the enemies have to be as equally crazy, because if there's 4 crazy people going around, like it accounts for the incompetence of your pawns. Like the mage, you could feel like you don't see them because you're probably, you know, up in that thick of battle. We're both melee oriented dudes, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
You don't see because when you play as a mage or even as a magic knight, I've started noticing that when you use magic, they have like long cooldowns. You have to, it takes like 15-20 seconds to cast something, and especially with Mystic Knight, there's a lot of uptime of like, okay, before we get in this fight, let me imbue my shield, then let me enchant my my axe, and then let me cast this rune, and then cast my balls so I can smack my balls with my fire magic now. And it's so much build up, and it kind of took me out of a lot of the fights because I'll be watching my incompetent ranger pawn getting their ass beat by a Saurian while I charge this up, or my mage over here trying to cast heal, but they're getting fucked up. And I'm like, it's cool because I can cast a rune to protect them, and it's like, okay, just stand in the rune, nothing is going to get close to you. But it's also like, damn, if there's 4 people being competent with, you know, because there's ways to shorten the cooldown, you know, augments and stuff. So it's like, if all of those people are, I don't want to say min-maxing, or if all those people are playing to the best of their ability, the game wouldn't be fun. And that's how I felt. But I mean, it's also in Japanese. It was back in the day. It was weird. Japanese stuff. But I just didn't feel good the first time. You know, you get in because imagine you get in a lobby. It's just like when you play like any other game. You're playing, and then some high level 130 dude comes in the lobby and just carries, and you're like, okay, I didn't really get to enjoy the division anymore.
Yeah, there is something, and I've always thought this is why I like playing games alone a lot of the time, is that the minute you start involving more than one other person, and you're facing other people, like the game becomes, I don't know what it is, but you start to lose a lot of the magic and the mystery and the role-playing aspect. Especially, that would be especially true in a game like this, where it's so like, you're sold on the fact of this sort of world and of your characters and what you're doing. And I don't know. I mean, it could work, but I do think that, yeah, like if you were to add a full 4-party system where, you know, people could all jump in with you, it would get messy. And that's, I mean, honestly, I know I've mentioned this a couple of times, but Rebirth's combat feels like you have like 8 niggas with you, and we're all doing like the craziest looking move.
Feels
like, I cannot fucking see what's happening. Like,
the demo is funny. You say that because the demo for Grand Blue Fantasy Relink and Rebirth
felt like that. Yeah,
they both reminded me of the exact same thing. When it's like I'm playing the multiplayer versions, and it's like this is no different than Rebirth, but it's just 3 other niggas with me that are doing this, and it leads to the caveat of, oh, you didn't level up level 5 through 10 as a strider to get these boosts and then these stats. It's like, you don't need to min-max in this game at all. You're going to be powerful no matter what you play, and no matter when you play it, you're going to feel impactful. It's never going to be like, oh, I didn't level up as a mage for the first 10 levels. Now Mystic Knight feels like shit. It's like, no, it still feels good. You're still going to level up. And I feel like adding multiplayer to this game would kind of ruin some of that because, now people are thinking of compositions and now people are thinking of builds and people are thinking of how do I do this? You know what I mean?
They would optimize the fun out of the game, yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, overall, though, combat is really just a
It's the highlight.
masterclass. Like, it's incredible. And that's kind of why I don't get sometimes how people haven't, why this game isn't lauded more, why it isn't a bigger game. I mean, I'm sure with 2 coming out, it might be, but 2's combat feels different.
It feels like a different game. It's the same, but it feels very different.
Yeah, like I don't like the hit stun that you're talking about, like when you're hitting an enemy and it almost feels like your weapon is getting stuck in their flesh as you're fucking like swiping, That's
like
I haven't
it has
quite...
that Street Fighter, like I love the call of the Street Fighter 4 where you like hit and it's like, oh, you feel the stun. It's like a flash, like every time you hit, where it's like, okay, I hit. Like when you hit like a multi-hit attack and it's like
exactly, like
it's like
like when you do not a Shoryuken, but what is Ryu's move called where he does like the uppercut?
Oh yeah, and then you can do it with the sword. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that move, it feels great because it almost feels like it doesn't feel like your sword is just gliding through them. It feels like it's actually tearing through a flesh, or in the case of Street Fighter, it feels like you're punching like every fucking part of their, like it's like like it feels right. You know what I was thinking too while playing this game, the OG of Dragon's Dogma, is that, and this is like very complicated for me because I'm like, what the fuck? I don't understand. Final Fantasy 16's combat feels close to this in terms of like the feel.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
like, do you know what I'm talking about?
You use certain abilities. It's like, oh yeah, I just fucked that guy.
Yeah, like it feel like like it does feel close to this, and it's Suno, right, that directed the combat on that game, or was it someone else?
I think it was Asuno. Yeah, I think it was. I think he was on 16.
So it feels like he took Dragon's Dogma, some of the philosophies of that, and then imbued it into 16, but then didn't carry some of that over completely to Dragon's Dogma 2. But that, I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also a different engine, different,
and
different vibes.
I think,
so I think maybe it works a little bit. What did you think of the questing in terms of not the main quest? Because I mean, the main quests, of course, are going to be grand in scale, but more so like the side quests, the bulletin boards and stuff that you would find around town.
I mean, I thought they were all serviceable. It was nice to be able to stack quests together. Like, I'm going to this region, so let me knock out, taking out 30 harpies or something. The side quests with like random characters that you might run into were all pretty cool. Like, kicking out that family or gathering evidence or I guess that was a main quest. Or was it a main quest?
Yeah, that was a main quest.
Fornival's, okay, that was a main quest, yeah. But I thought the quests were pretty cool. I mean, not like the greatest. They were serviceable enough, and some had interesting stories. Yeah, I liked them. I don't think there was any one that really like stood out. I like most of them. I don't think I have much criticism there or anything really to say about them.
I didn't like.
Do you
them,
have anything?
Sorry.
You didn't like any of the quests?
Well, I like like you said, like Celine, Madeline, Mercedes, like their quest lines when it comes to like important characters, they were good. Mm-hmm. But they didn't feel like side quests to me, so I don't really quantify them as that. But like I'm talking like like the notice boards where it's like slay 7 rats, escort this person or bring this person.
MMO-ness.
Those MMO quests were very dumb. They were very like, okay, I get it. But it like after a while, like I kind of picked them up just to be like, hey, if I do them, I do them. If I don't, I don't. But I would have much rathered if they spent that time or even used the notice boards to be like, hey, this NPC is looking for this, so grab this notice and make it literally like a quest board instead of do these little half-ass MMO side quest for EXP. Like, I want you to be like, hey, Miranda needs to be escorted here, and then you go to talk to Miranda and she's like, thank you for taking my request. I need to go to this town so I can get some supplies. Can you carry me? It's a lot of goblins. Then it's a whole quest, and you can have a storyline with that. It's different than just being like escort quest activated and then the NPC just fucking spawns next to you. And you can't do anything else.
The escort quest seemed like an excuse to two things. They were increasing your affinity with that character for God knows reason why you would want to do that with some of these characters.
This random ass NPC.
Yeah. Because you could pretty much increase your affinity with almost everybody, or a lot of the main side cast, I guess. And then two, it took you to somewhere on the. It usually took you to somewhere on the map that you hadn't been, or maybe you had been, but maybe like a little bit. Like there was one that took me to the miasma, like island or like a miasma lake kind of thing. There's another one that took me to this falls that I never had been to. Another one that took me like all the way across the fucking map to like
it's that other beach.
Blood Blood Gulch or Blood Water Beach. I think that's what they were for, to like get you to move around, the quests and to build affinity. So I didn't mind them, but this is where I think the lack of horses and things like that makes it feel kind of funny, because it's like we're walking all this way and we're just like,
and as soon as you get there, you're just gonna be like, thanks, and then disappear. So it's what the fuck did I do this for?
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be cool if like you could put them like in a carriage or like something.
You could teleport
a little
with
bit
them.
Different. Yeah. I knew that.
Which made traveling a little bit easier. I kind of had my like Port Crystal network as like where can I put this to where I can teleport and then reach other spaces in like a closer area than like running the whole fucking way.
Yeah, the Port Crystals are great. They're great. I feel like I didn't get many to use them as well as I'd like, but I think I only had 3. And I ended up with 3 at the end.
I think I had 5, I want to say.
God damn.
Yeah.
So I played more than you, and you had 5, and I only had 3.
I explored a lot of spots, and I just found them. Like there was one in the spot where you fight the Griffin. There was one in the catacombs. There was one in the spot where you kill the guy for Mason. There was one next to the Dragon Bane, the old dusty dude. Yeah, and then there was one in the castle that you like storm when like Mercedes is fighting Julian.
Yeah, I think I missed some of them then. I didn't see them, or I didn't grab them. I totally missed them. So that's great. That's why it took me 52 hours.
That's why it took me 50 fucking hours, because I had to fucking walk.
Yeah, but overall the quests were fun. I didn't mind the escorting. I didn't mind the escorting because I liked exploring the world, and I think that was a huge pillar of this game and what has it excel in open world design. It's just like the open world means
something.
Yeah, it means something. It's interesting. It's wondrous. It's scary. It's mysterious. You don't know what you're gonna find. You don't know what you're gonna get. You don't know who you're gonna run into. You just don't know. You don't know the limits yet, and that's what's kind of cool about this game, is that for a while you don't know the limits of things. And
I can see spawn out of nowhere and attack.
Yeah,
you.
like
ogres in the middle of the street. It's like, oh,
exactly.
Okay. I don't know how.
You just don't know until you actually get there. Did you talk to the leader of the Red Bandits, the lady,
yes.
the all-female? Yeah. Like, I didn't know. Yeah.
I had to pay her like a bribe. I had to pay a toll, and she was like, hey, if you want to, because we're not going to kill you, but you need to get the fuck out of here. All right. Or else. Yeah. And I had to pay her a whole bribe.
She doesn't like men at all. So if you have any men with you, or if you're a guy, their reaction is way different than if you have an all-girl group or whatever, which is really cool. But yeah, little things like that. I don't know. It's just like the world. I can't quite put my finger on it because it's not a perfect open world. It's not perfect world open world
It's
design.
good
But it's
for the context of what it is because it's not big. It's like it's not
right.
even like
It's
the
not
whole
big.
country. It's like a chunk. It's like a little
Yeah.
coast of the country. And I think because there's always something in the wayside, it's not like you're just running through trees forever until you reach the next magical checkpoint. When you go through the trees, there's a chest right there. Then there's like a node full of herbs that you can pick up for combining. Then you go over here and like, oh, there's a hole that leads to a shortcut through this way. And so no matter even if you go off the beaten path, there's something there for you to do, whether it's a chest, whether it's a monster, whether it's a boss, there's always something in every corner of the map to where by the time that you even get back to Grand Soren, if you were just like, okay, I'm going to go from one corner of the world to the other corner of the world and back, you would have like 4 times the amount of inventory and just stuff that you just experience because even if you know the path and you've gone that way, like for example, I've gone multiple times to the Bloodwater Beach. It was like, oh, I'm fighting a griffin now, or oh, there's a dragon, or oh, there's some ogres and a cyclops or something fighting in the middle of the street. Like, okay, let me handle this. It's very emergent in that way.
Yeah, that's well put. I actually didn't fight any dragons.
You didn't find like one like
I
randomly.
didn't.
There was one like right underneath
I
where the bandits throw the fucking roll the ball. That's where I saw my first dragon. Like right after they like rolled the ball and killed the bandits, and then I looked to my right and below because my pawn fell, and I look over.
There was
There's
a
fucking
dragon?
dragon.
Well, I'm sorry. Not that I didn't run into any, but I didn't fight any. So that's kind of cool that you fought several and I fought none. I also don't think I fought a cockatrice in the wild. Did you?
I only fought a cockatrice, and when I came back, I like used the fairy stone going back to Grand Soren, and you know how it
And there
spawns you
was
in like the little small area, and there was just a cockatrice, and they were like,
yeah,
kill the cockatrice, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess.
yeah. I think that was the main. Yeah, that was the main mission after you do several for like the king or something to prove to him. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, that was the main mission. But outside of that, I don't think I ever fought one, save for the Everfall. I fought him in one of the chambers, but I don't think that doesn't really count.
Yeah,
I don't think, at least.
I think it's all random anyway.
Oh, I forgot to add this, but the sound effects and enemy physics, I think, give this game a really premium feel. I think that just all the sounds, right, kind of add to the overall presentation, which I forgot to add because it was very, very important to how this game comes together. But what did you think about the leveling system overall, as well as the vocation? Which those two, like the vocation ranking up, that's not like a new thing. I feel like I've not seen it in another game, but maybe I just don't play the right games to see like a vocation rank up. Is that like a? Do you know of another game that does that?
Only games I can think of that do like a separate like player level and class level are like MMOs, really. Like, but
Well, I
like,
guess that's probably where
yeah.
this game. Yeah, that makes sense. Duh.
I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't really find anything wrong with the leveling, but I mean, I've broken out of
You're
the
numb
mind.
to it.
Yeah, I've broken out of the mind goblin of I need to min max. I need to, if I need +7 in this stat, and then I need to do this, and now I just play the game and just do whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, and it's doable. It's not like I'm gonna be at a disadvantage for leveling in the wrong class or anything like that. And you can change classes on the fly. Well, not on the fly, but going to an inn and then changing your vocation and stuff like. So it's like, if I wanted to, like, even after I beat the game, I was like, you know what? I want to try Magic Archer again. That was my favorite class when I first played it. Let me see how it really feels now that I'm playing it again. And it feels good. I switched over, and then I was like, okay, I'm actually doing some harder content. Let me switch back over to the class that I leveled up. I digged it. And at least the upgrades, I like that every ability had an upgraded form. And the upgrades felt truly tangible. Like the 360 slash was just a 1-hit attack when you 360 slash, and then it became a 4-hit attack once you upgraded it. Or the fact that when you upgrade, there was one ability. What was it? It was the sigils. So like you would put these sigils down, and anything that ran into it would immediately like bounce up and like get repelled, and it would do damage. So instead, when I was fighting big bosses, I would just use the sigil when it would fall over, and it would just instantly use all of the charges. I think it's like 6 charges when you like first use it, and then it's like 20 charges when you like upgrade it. So it's just like gizz, 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 and it would just tear through enemies. So I would just be popping sigils, popping sigils, popping sigils. So it's just like constant multi hits, and it felt good to do. I felt every time that I leveled up and I leveled up my vocation, and I finally went back and upgraded everything, I felt like, yes, that was a good upgrade. I'm getting better. I can
Right.
change my skills out. I would change my skills a lot and be like, okay, this time I kind of want to be a little bit mobile, so let me put burst strike on. Or this area is a little bit more tricky, so I'm gonna put like holy wall so I can cast a giant force field shield that I can like block attacks from if I'm fighting a dragon or something like that.
The vocations give a lot of replayability to this game, because like I never really touched any of like the mage. I didn't really spec into like I think I acted as the assassin, which was basically like the rogue and then the assassin, and then you can use bows, swords, and daggers. I started a new game, and then I did the what is it, the warrior that has like the giant weapon.
Yeah, two-handed, yeah, warrior.
Yeah, I went into that, and that feels different. So I'm like, there's a lot to do, a lot of time to play, a lot of ways that the game changes based on, at least combat wise, based on how you are, I guess, most inclined to play. It's just great, man. It is really a masterclass. I wanted to add too that I feel like the game needed a sounds dumb, but I do feel like there needed to be like a spyglass. Like I needed like a monocle to like look away or look far away.
I said this shit to Devin, bro, while I was playing. She was watching me play, and I was like, why don't they have like a binoculars or something, bro? Like,
yeah, like I just don't. How cool would that have been? Like I wanted that, a spyglass, and then which I think Assassin's Creed Odyssey has a spyglass.
Yeah, it does.
Which I think
I do remember that from playing.
Which I think is really cool. Which is also, I mean, honestly, Assassin's Creed is kind of like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's kind of like Dragon's Dogma a little bit.
Hey.
Without the stealth,
But speaking of that, I do wish that there was stealth elements. You know, I wish that there was at least a crouch button.
Yeah.
At least the ability to crouch and sneak away, to be like, oh, that's a giant dragon. Let me crouch and run away. Or, oh, we're sneaking into, because there is stealth missions in this game. So it's like, oh, what if I could sneak around? But I guess it also takes away from the game, because I mean, that's just like, you know, Skyrim, everybody starts Skyrim and they're like, you know, this time I'm going two-handed sword, or this time I'm going mage. And what do? You go to sneaking and using a fucking bow. And that's what everybody would do in Dragon's Dogma if they had the chance. I did it in Kingdom of Amalur.
Kingdom of Amalur is also good. Yeah, I think you're right. I think the assassin or the strider or whatever could have used an ability, like lock it to a class. Like if you want to be able to sneak, you have to be a thief or an assassin.
Or even like if it was like a skill that you could use that turns you invisible, but it uses stamina or something.
Yeah, something like that. Exactly.
Yeah.
Would have been, yeah. I do think that the game could have also benefited from maybe another, because you could upgrade your basic attacks. I think it could have benefited from just one more branch of like basic attacks, because you know how you could press square, pause, then square or whatever, and then triangle.
Yeah.
I think just like one more like branch to kind of give that a bit more.
I fucking hate our braids, bro. Because you know it. Because it's like a Muso game. If every character, if every class had like a square triangle, and it was it's tried and tested, bro. It's too good. Square triangle is an aerial. Square triangle is a single hit. Your 3 is a multi hit. Your 4 is your unique one, and then your 5th one is your ultimate. Like it just works.
It again would have been cool. Like sure, maybe the mage doesn't get one. Maybe like the archer doesn't get one. But like, you know, give it to like the people that are more melee based or something. I don't know. There could have been a bit more.
I do agree with that. If there was more core skills to upgrade instead of just you know, they give you about like 5 or 6. But if there was, you're right. Like after you parry, if you press triangle, then you can do a stab, or if you're the Strider, if you press the dodge button at the right time, then you'll sneak behind them and you can press triangle to do a backstab or something like that.
Right.
You know, just make it a little bit, play into that class fantasy a little bit more. And I mean, I guess with the limitations, because then each class will be super fucking broken, and then I guess you do have to limit the player. You
Yeah.
can't make them super powerful because one class will be
yeah.
super powerful, and you'll be like, all right.
Yeah, it's a
can't have that.
balancing issue. Yeah.
Speaking of balancing issues, I had entirely too much curatives by the end of the game because it's just after a while I kind of, and this is mainly for me, recording gameplay. This is gonna be a bitch to edit, but just because my sessions and my like recordings are all like an hour, 2 hour long. Because you're not, because half 20 minutes of my time is spending at the end depositing everything that I got, and I got to move all these things over to this fourth pawn so he can be my mule, and then I'm in the thing and I'm combining all these materials to make arrows and making this into curatives, and it's like by the time that I finished I had like so many curatives and just stuff in the inventory that I never really used, or it's like I guess New Game Plus I'll have an infinite supply of curatives off the rack, but it's also like I never had to use those. I never really had an incentive, and there's so many items that you can combine all this stuff into, and some items aren't even like for use. Is just like you combine this to make it into something that you can combine to make into something useful. And the way that the UI looked for crafting, it just, I felt exhausted by the end of my playthrough because it felt like every session, 40% of my session was crafting, depositing, withdrawing, crafting, depositing, withdrawing, moving shit between pawns so I can have.
There was indeed a lot of item management. For some reason that didn't quite bother me so much. But there was a point where I think what bothered me more was just the fact that I kept getting over encumbered, and I kept having to like manage my weight and like move things around. I'm like, well, what the fuck do I need? I don't fucking know. What am I going to be facing? Do I need all this shit? Well, let me just bring one of these. Let me go back and store this.
That was my exact problem because I brought, I think, every element, the weapons that are like automatically imbued with each. So I was like, okay, just in case we're fighting zombies, I'm gonna keep the fire sword with me, and then I'll bring the ice sword if we're fighting.
That is crazy. You're bringing, damn,
yes,
that's a lot of weight.
I brought every single one with me as like a just in case. And yeah, I was always either heavy or encumbered. So it was just like, all right, this shit doesn't feel good.
Yeah, it was very, I don't know, and I think they just have too many items. They need to do some sort of like a survey or research to find out what items aren't used to just take those out. I don't think that we need, like I was saying, I don't think that we need items specifically for every individual debilitation, every status effect. I don't think we need that. It's just there's 20, I think there's like 15 different status effects that your character can have. That means that there's 15 different potions, with each potion having like 8 ways that you could make that potion. And I was like, Jesus Christ, like this is too much.
And then you have the materials, so like each monster can drop like 3 or 4 or 5 different
just
like
too much
materials, and it's like which material is useful.
You know what they should have done? They should have done what they should have done was went like Torchlight. Torchlight has the pet system. Give us
send
a pet
pawn, you can be like,
send
here's
the
all my
pawn back.
shit. Go back.
You don't have your pawn for a little bit, so it's like a give and take. Like, sure, you collected all this, so that would be sick. Like, just look, I'm gonna send Sondi back to town. He's gonna go fucking drop some shit off. Maybe he'll even pick up something. Hey, grab me grab me 2 potions. Yeah, grab me some health. Bring him back. I'm gonna hang around here. It takes maybe a day. Maybe you camp. You can speed it up, or maybe you can just explore. Whatever. Damn, that would be so cool. Damn.
If only they made a second game.
If only they fucking made a second game. All right. God, I mean, the last thing I have is that and this is sort of about questing. There is a lot of guesswork with some missions. Like I was mentioning earlier, the obtuseness. You don't really know what the consequences are, which is like real life, I suppose. But I did use a guide towards the end for certain things because I wanted certain outcomes, which I feel like enhanced, but also took a little bit of the magic out.
But this game heavily, like,
There's things that lock you out.
yeah, it beats
For
your
sure.
ass if you don't like choose the wrong. You can choose the wrong thing, and then it's like, yeah, this character that's actually important and has their own shop does not exist anymore.
Yeah, because you did this, or because you activated this mission first, so now they're not available for the rest of the game. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Fuck. So
and this
knowing
person
that helps.
Yeah. There were certain moments where like you would get like a choice, or like at the end of a thing where it's like, you can give this item to this person, or you can give this item to this
Yeah.
person. And I'm like, let me go to the wiki real quick and see what's the options for both. And then you see it and it's like, yeah, this person gives you a discount at the shop. This person allows you to get this super rare weapon later. And it's like, oh okay. I guess.
So
like,
I was using the Dragon's Dogma wiki a lot.
yeah, like for
towards the
example,
end.
Celine's quest, once you finish her quest line and she moves into your house in the fishing village, if you go back to her house, there's a chest there and it has a ring. You can give that ring and that makes whoever you give the ring to your beloved. And that's how you get over being like at the end, because I kind of wanted Celine for the end, because after I finished her storyline, I was like, oh yeah, you're my beloved. But
oh yeah, you're it.
But if you wanted, this character, but you talk to the innkeeper too much, then it's like weird when you get to the dragon and it's like, oh, that's my beloved? That random NPC from the Pawn Guild? Okay.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even know there was like a whole beloved thing until I looked it up, and I was like, oh, like when I was looking up the quest for having to choose between sacrificing your beloved, I'm like, who the fuck is your beloved? And I was like, oh, I should probably go and find out who I want to make that my beloved and all that. But
yeah, but you don't even know how to make that. It's like, do I give them gifts? And then
yeah,
apparently
it's not clear.
If you give somebody the ring, it still doesn't mean that they're your beloved. Some people can have more affinity than it's just like it isn't like a max affinity permanently. It's like you're giving somebody max affinity instantly, but it can still decrease. You can still increase it with other people. This game's weird, bro.
It's weird
because it wasn't necessary. Like they kind of like allude to like Kiana, or what the fuck is her name? Queena? Yeah, Queena is like your beloved because you fight the dragon to protect her in the beginning.
Yeah, which I'm like, I didn't get that at all for some reason. I didn't. I thought they were just
cousin.
Like
I was like, cuz.
Hey, what up, cuz?
Everybody was like, yo, you was not my cousin, bro.
Yeah. Damn, we've been going for 3 hours.
I'm hip. And you know what's crazy? We were going for like an hour before this, just about Dragon's Dogma 2. And guess what we about to do when we stop recording?
Dude.
Dragon's Dogma 2.
I'm about to jump in.
I'm diving in, but
we should probably wrap. Let's wrap this bad boy up. It's gonna be
This is
a bitch. It's gonna be a bitch to edit. Holy fuck!
But
this is basically two of our, because we've been keeping them so short more recently. An hour and 30.
We had to take it back old school. That's how you know it's a good game. When we talk for 3 hours, you see that episode count as, oh yeah, this is a good game. Nah,
yeah,
Dragon's Dogma, pick it up, please.
Please play it. Everybody has to play it. I know, like, it's one of those games where going back isn't like recommended, but this one just really and it really gives you a greater appreciation for the second one too. I would say, like, not that they're connected, but it's a spiritual thing. Like the first one is still so good on its own and has its own mechanics. Combat feels different. There's a lot of different designs for the pawns and everything, but just explore that world and see what they were doing 10, 15 years ago when they designed it, and play Dragon's Dogma 2 and just like, it's a good companion game. Like they're both together. not like one, like, because I saw a lot of articles saying like, should I play Dragon's Dogma 2 before should I play Dragon's Dogma 1 before 2? And I'm just
I've
like,
seen a lot of people like, you should not
like,
play
no.
Dragon's Dogma 2 Dragon's Dogma 1 at all. Just skip straight to 2, and it's like, no.
Yeah, they're not connected. It's like, dude, to really appreciate what they're doing here, and because first off, the first game isn't. I mean, sure, there needs to be improvements on it, but like not so much that it's just like, yeah, don't even bother with the first one. Like 1 stands on its own, I would say, and then 2 just refines and changes some things. And it's a different world, you know, so it's kind of like you're jumping in for another adventure with some like more polished, better graphics. But 1 has something for sure. It has something.
Yeah, it's got some soul to it, man.
It has a lot of soul.
A lot of soul to it.
That's a good way to put it.
Whereas from the time of this recording, it's only been like 2 days since the game's come out. But I put a lot of hours of the Dragon's Dogma 2, and it's a different vibe.
Yeah, because it does. You can start to see like this is for everybody.
Yeah,
I feel like
you start to see small things where you're like, oh yeah, this is for the mainstreams right here.
Yeah, which makes sense. They invest a lot of money into this stuff, but it's like you can start to see, like, I mean, obviously the oversimplification of armor. There are some systems that I've seen so far that it's like they're making it clear to you, like what you need to do, and even the map to some degree. It even shows like, honestly, I think I might disable the mini map. I don't know if you can. Can you?
Yeah, you can. I disabled the control. That's like the very first thing I did. Once I learned the controls, I was like, yeah, get this shit out the bottom of my screen, bro. Like, I don't need a controller at the bottom.
Oh my god, I can never do that. I don't know why.
Bro, you have to. Trust me. Once you really do it, you're gonna be like, wow. You're gonna pay attention to the world more.
I think I might do that and remove the mini map and then see how.
I don't know about the mini map though. I'll be getting lost.
No, but I can just press, I don't know, maybe because the mini map, I feel like I look too much at it, like as I'm playing, and I'm not like really focusing.
Yeah, you're looking at the mini map. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's how I was with the control guide, where I was looking at the control guide more than I was looking at the thing. Because for example, especially with the Mystic Knight, back to Dragon's Dogma 1, as I would use it to see when my cooldowns, cast times were going, and I'm like, okay, cool. But it's like, I could also just listen to the sound cue, and it has a visual cue of like, this is level 1, this is level 2, this is level 3 of the spell. So I could look at it, hear it, and do that instead of just, let me look at the bar at the bottom right of the screen,
Wait, hold on. Did Dragon's Dogma 1 have a map? A mini map? It did, right? Yeah. Okay.
It just didn't show like indifference is that like this one shows you like you're in the general area of the quest, whereas the other one was like, here's the quest. You just had to figure
it didn't
out.
show you as much for sure.
Yeah.
Like the mini map in 2 has like, here's the chest is right here. There's a chest here. This is a point of interest. And I think the first one, it just showed you the map. It didn't show you like there's something right here. You would have to go over there without knowing there's gonna be a chest.
Oh yeah, the mini map does point out and says, "Hey, you can do something here."
Yeah.
Come back.
That's exactly, and that's kind of why I'm like, I don't like that feeling. Yeah. But, all right, let's fucking wrap this thing up. Thank you guys for watching another episode of Back of the Rack, Dragon's Dogma, the OG. Definitely play it. Add it to your collection. We recommend the remastered version, or you can play the archaic PS3 version. Or Xbox 360 version. Yeah, either way,
because the
it's
PS3
a great
version
game.
does have the Guts armor. It has the Berserk collab. So,
does it? I did not know that.
They took it out of the remasters, so you could
the licensing
run around with Griffin and Guts' swords and stuff.
Sick. That's cool. You know what's so funny? I saw some people. I thought that was armor you could actually get in game and not a set. So that makes sense. Because I was like, that looks like a Guts, and that looks like Griffin. But there you go. But yeah, we would definitely recommend this game. This feels like it might be sweeping the Boater Awards. We don't know. Let us know what you guys think about. Let us know what you guys think in the comments about Dragon's Dogma, and if you're playing Dragon's Dogma 2. And we'll see you on the next episode of Back of the Rack, which will be Dissidia. Which, now that I'm thinking of,
it's our first handheld title.
Death by Degrees.
Dark Sector.
Dragon's Dogma.
Okay.
Dissidia, Dragon's Quarter,
Alpha Protocol.
All Ds. It's the 5 Ds. This is the 5D season.
The 5Ds? Oh, we should have played Wheelie Wars, bro. Are you hip to this? Hold on, bro. All right, end the podcast. Get out of here. See you guys later.